Special called meeting, August 28th.
Heavenly Father, you know the list was long this morning. Pray for all those, Lord, that were mentioned that need thy healing hand. Pray for Noah Bishop and any others, Lord, the family with the tragic accident. And please be with them and bless them and comfort their hearts as only you can. Ask thee, forgive us for all of our many sins. We thank you for this another beautiful day that you let us be a part of your world, Lord. We ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Okay. Like I said, welcome everybody. Now, we have Kevin here, and the council members have some questions about our audit. So, whoever would like to be first, y'all know Kevin.
Mr. Walden, good to see you.
See you. I just want to clarify a couple of things. I had a couple of questions about once the audit is done and signed off on, who all did it go to, and what is the time frame for having it submitted?
Sure. Typically, the deadline for the audit is June 30th, 2014, for 6 months. But y'all received an extension from the Georgia Department of Audits, so it's actually due December 31st. But ideally, you would submit it as early as you can. But you have an extension through the rest of this year. A copy of the audit will obviously go to council members, retain obviously however many copies you want to keep here at City Hall for any public inspection. And that's really going to be up to you. A copy of the audit needs to go to Georgia Department of Audits, and also a copy online will need to be submitted to the Carl Vinson Institute with the University of Georgia, and we can assist in showing how to do that. It's the same thing that you do for E-Verify. It's the same login and stuff. And that information should be here, or else we'll get together and make sure y'all comply with all that.
So with an extension letter, we have plenty of time to
Yes.
start corrections.
Plenty of time. Yes, sir.
One other question, the Department of Community Affairs.
Yes, sir.
Said you have a draft. Do we submit to them?
Yes, sir. After the audit's completed, we do a report of local government finances. We have prepared that for y'all in the past few years just because it's easier to do in connection with the audit. And that's already been prepared and is ready to be approved by y'all and submitted once you obtain approval.
On that note, the council, as in me, I didn't know, I had actually asked staff about the Georgia Department of Audit Affairs. I found that on my own that we had asked for an extension, and the letter that came back from the Georgia Department of Audit Affairs was very clear that yes, we're going to give you to December 31st, but we cannot alleviate you from other agencies such as the Department of Community Affairs. So someone here was basically told it's up to you to contact and get the same extension. What we did receive is that our government is currently ineligible for any grant or loan funding through the Department of Community Affairs due to a non-compliance status, meaning that we are not in compliance, which requires the submission of the report of local government finances within 6 months of the government's fiscal year. We want to notify you that we do not have it for fiscal year 2013 that is due on June the 30th. So somewhere something, so we are actually not in compliance.
Okay. We have a copy of that report available to be submitted. As soon as that report is submitted, the compliance is taken away. Yeah. I don't know of any grant funds that y'all are pending that you're losing out on, as far as for it to be a penalty for you.
We're actually, you have to be a Department of Community Affairs grant or other state grants, because we are actually in the middle of a very big grant that we're applying for an extension for with our rec department.
It's Department of Community Affairs, and as soon as we get this report and get a finalized management representation letter, it can be sent tomorrow. So.
Any other questions?
And going into the letter,
Which letter?
well, when we go into the letter that was basically asking for us, or I guess the mayor was the one person that would have signed it. So what I'm looking at is basically where it shows the, we confirm to the best of our knowledge, and it says as of July 11th, 2014, the following representations made to you during the audit.
Yes.
And it's got the financial statements, so we go into these numbered number of
Yes,
things.
ma'am?
Okay. And my understanding that when the sentence starts with, we have fulfilled our responsibilities, it's we saying that we have. It's not
Yes.
we as in you have,
Yes,
correct?
this is a management representation letter. This is a letter that will go on city letterhead, submitted to us from you.
Okay, but who wrote this for, so the auditor writes a letter to us from us? Is that how?
No. See, there, the AICPA, the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, requires certain language in this. This is actually a form letter, and it's the standard that must be set. I mean, there's nothing in here that can be taken out. This is what the representations are in the course of an audit that must be made. So basically, we already have that form letter because we have all the audit programs and we understand that. So every single year, every audit I've ever done in my entire life, we draft this document and submit it to management to review and sign.
But there's 44 things over here that we are saying we are knowledgeable of, or so that we are telling ourselves that these 44 things in this audit, and then we're signing off that we represented that these facts we just stated are true.
Yes, ma'am.
So if I've got issues with these 44 statements as being true, we have to handle that before we sign this letter, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I'm saying, you follow me, because if this is a letter on city letterhead that we are saying we've done, and we as in, I didn't have any, there's a lot of it was the first time I heard of it. Okay, so is everybody on the same page with me on that?
This-
Or we?
This looks like something that is just put in year after year, the same
Good.
generic.
Yes, sir.
And
Yes, sir, it is. And I would also like to say, me and Holly had a very successful meeting the other day. I went line by line down each of these. I explained how revenues are allocated, how basically all this is that someone, it doesn't mean everybody, it means someone has to accept responsibility for these statements and also say that they've overseen our services.
Okay, then that's going to bring me to my next thing. It's like let's just take number one as an example. When we're saying we, the city, have fulfilled our responsibilities set out in that engagement letter, including the responsibility for the preparation and fair representation of our financial statements, that goes right along with number two, which that the financial statements referred to above were fairly presented, that properly classified funds and other information that kind of was generally accepted. The problem is, as you're in here doing this, and even up until last week, we have not had one single bank statement in this city balance. So I'm not sure how I can say this was given to you when nothing in this city was reconciled. We couldn't even get account information in a packet as to where we were.
Ms. Ransom, I've done this audit for the past few years, okay? I get this information at year end every single year. And as of December 31st, I had the information. We create audit work papers that
But we weren't closed out. We didn't close out even the end of December 31st until April. It wasn't even closed out.
we started our work in April. I mean, that's what we do. We didn't even begin work till April. It takes some time because payables have to come in, receivables have to come in. You know, you're collecting money from the state that may affect last year. You may have payments that affect last year. We had several payables that we needed to address this year for payments from last year that we needed to correct.
So basically, you're saying you didn't start this until at least 2012, until 2013 was reconciled, because that was part of the problem that we had trying to do a budget, was that as trying to do the budget, we couldn't even get reconciled. It was allegedly discovered that nothing from the end of the year had even been reconciled. We had to pay someone to come in privately at $60, to come in and reconcile our bank account. So I'm trying to see where the crossover between what wasn't reconciled and the information that you had to start with, because then evidently whatever happened from the end of the year, then nothing else was reconciled until it's being worked on now. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Makes perfect sense.
So in that's what I want to make sure was that we were dealing with reconciled accounts and not something that after you were already in the accounts, it gets reconciled this month, which is going to be completely conflicting with. You follow me?
I completely follow. Ms. Ransom, every single year I've done this. We obtain bank reconciliation. We obtain the list of outstanding checks. We review the subsequent items. We have tons of audit procedures that we have to do, and we verify those numbers. We get confirmations externally from banks that show that if we have a number on that paper, we have a work paper that backs
Well,
it up.
good, because when we get over to the numbers, I'm gonna, that's going to be something I hope you can pull up, because there's some numbers that are not flowing with what I have. But
Okay.
I want to deal with the questions part first, because that's what we're
Okay.
saying that we are saying. When we get into that we acknowledge our responsibility for the design, the implementation, and the internal control to prevent and detect fraud. So that's just us saying we know if there are policies or lack of policies, that it's up to the city.
Yes, it's the city's responsibility to have internal controls in place to detect fraud in a fair, quickly amount of time. If there was something to go wrong, it should be found. It should be found quickly.
The, I was trying to find one that says, okay, which brings me to number 16. Which number 16, where it says we have no knowledge of instances of noncompliance or suspected noncompliance with provisions, laws, regulations, contracts, grant agreements, or those when we're preparing the financial statements. But that's a problem for me because we didn't do our budget compliantly. We didn't present the budget last year. We didn't advertise the budget properly, and we didn't adopt it by an ordinance. And I'd actually called the state trying to find out just are we out of compliance. There were things that were called for to be paid in 2013, the bills that came in that weren't in the budget to be paid, which is why we couldn't just go right ahead and go back in and adopt the one that wasn't adopted properly. And then also knowing that with the Department of Community Affairs, we're not in compliance. How do we claim no knowledge if I knew coming into 14 that we were not in compliance with something as simple as the way we adopted the budget?
Okay. This is what I want to explain. First, number one, to address your questions about noncompliance. This is dealing solely with 2013, so we're not talking about 2014 budgets or anything going forward. We have no knowledge of instances of noncompliance or suspected noncompliance. We actually put in our management control letter what we discussed with Cynthia about the budget concerning the ordinance resolution issue and the consistency with that. We've addressed that in the management comment letter.
I saw the comment letter part. The problem is that's one of the things I don't agree with, and part of the reason why I don't agree with it is had we not been legally out of compliance, then we could have adopted without having to go into an emergency budget for a few months. And on page 22 of every audit, that's one thing I did do as a citizen. I got a copy of the audits, and we talk about that at the end of each year. And one of the things that is in every audit, on page 22 of every audit that this firm has done, is that the city encourages, well, I'm looking for the wrong one. Which page is it? There's a page in here where you basically note that our audit is to be done by an ordinance, and it's in this budget. Called it an ordinance in the budget that you're asking us to approve. Well, I know it's never been done and was not done as an ordinance. And I went back and checked, and that was what was in the 12 audit, and the 11 audit was calling for us to do it by an ordinance and to advertise it properly. And we have it.
That wasn't done for 13. I know you mentioned 14. Well,
No, I'm on 13.
But 13 was not done properly either by an ordinance, and it wasn't advertised properly.
And the
But
fact
what
that
we're
it says
saying in
ordinance.
here, if we are indeed saying this, everything is done properly.
But while I'm looking in the same audit, claiming that it had to be done,
And Ms.
as-
Bailey knows that it wasn't done by ordinance.
Ms. Taylor?
Well,
and it wasn't advertised.
what Kevin and I were talking about was 2014, we didn't discuss the 2013.
I'm
You
talking
don't
about
have-
13.
Y'all were talking about 13.
This is the 13 audit, I'm talking about 13.
Yeah.
13 was a legal issue.
Yeah.
It was we legally did not have a budget, we were legally
But
not operating.
the 13 budget wasn't even advertised for January 13. It should have been advertised.
Some,
Yeah,
well, no,
that's-
what we found. The city did
So
not
the-
pay.
I thought that was the 14 budget that we were talking about in the advertising. Because as far as I knew, the 13
It
budget
wasn't
was
advertised.
advertised.
No, that wasn't advertised.
But it was
Okay.
advertised. Then we found out it was advertised when we were in the middle of the emergency budget.
That was the 14.
That was the
budget.
14.
That was
Right.
the 14 budget.
That was 14.
Yes.
The 13,
Wasn't advertised.
Well, I don't know that.
well,
I don't know.
that's gonna be one of the things, so, but, okay, well, let's go back to just, do you have the page by a lot of words in there on that? One second, it's gonna be, oh, right here, let's say, page 36. An annual budget is prepared and approved by the mayor and council for the general fund prior to this budget being legally enacted through the passage of an ordinance. And that's in the 12, and the 11, and the 10, and it's in just and the 13 budget wasn't legally prepared by an ordinance. So to say that it's just a irregularity, to me, it was not, I mean, I'm saying here I know it's done right, while a few pages over claiming that it was prepared by an ordinance. Do you follow? I mean, to me, that's gonna be an open record.
I do. And I have this conflict. This is a conflict I had to address in the course of this audit because I knew this risk. How we do our audit obviously is a risk-based approach, and I knew this risk. And the only thing I knew to do was consult legal counsel. And that's the only thing I knew to do.
Yeah, and then when we were talking about 2014, I didn't go back and look at.
Well, but let's just say, even if it was advertised, if you do the fact that we know 13 was not passed by an ordinance, and we know that the 12 claims it was by an ordinance, and this is the 13, and we know 13 was a resolution. So to me, that is it's not legally, the term legal is in that page. This was legally done by an ordinance.
Miss Daly, could I interject for a second?
You can.
And you can sort of follow me with this. Ms. Ransom, I went back and looked at the Georgia Code concerning budgets. The Georgia law, if you look at it, it requires that it must be passed by ordinance or resolution. Now,
Unless you're chartered, and then it defers you to your charter.
hold on just a second, please, also. There's also a list of definitions at the beginning of that. In the official code of Georgia, it describes what the definitions of terms are, which Ms. Daly will know that legal sense is very specific. At the beginning of that, it says, for the purposes of this section, the term budget ordinance, ordinance, resolution, budget resolution shall mean, which means that they hold the same value.
But it defers you to your charter, and if your city charter, which is your eminent power to govern, claims you can only do it by an ordinance, then you can only do it by an ordinance. And our charter says it can only, and we can't spend a dime until it's done by an ordinance. Charter says.
I'll have to defer that to your legal counsel. That's all I can do.
And that's what put us in an emergency budget.
That's pretty clear, you know, to me, and I have lawyers and I know how that works, but I mean, this is clear. If the charter states that I had nothing to do with the end of this charter, they passed it, they adopted it, and I don't understand why it wasn't gone by. If the charter says an ordinance, then it must be an ordinance.
And here's the reason why I'm going to be, because I called. I mean, I spent some time calling around trying to see if there was any gray area in that. The reason why there's not a gray area is that our charter is on one hand a strong mayor, strong council charter in the sense that it gives mayor veto power. So by not passing a budget by an ordinance, you have since removed chartered powers for the mayor to be able to veto any section of a budget. So that's the reason why I was told we would defer back to the charter had that in there for a reason, and the state law gave us that to govern under our home rule, and we're not supposed to violate that unless a state law supersedes it, and that we didn't.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think what I'm hearing is, y'all would like for it to say that it was adopted by resolution when the charter.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say that we legally adopted
I think
this, and there was no
Change
problem with
language,
it, and then
yeah.
you flip over to 36, and we didn't do it by an ordinance, and you're claiming we just signed off saying that we did.
Again, Ms. Ransom, this is a draft copy of the audit. It's not a final. So if there are corrections, we'll make them.
Right, but
Um,
had it been
I
signed,
think
at
they
any
would have
point,
been audits, what they're
it
saying.
would have been official.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Make that happen.
Linda Walden. And I still got a problem with it being legal. If it has to be done by the charter, it has to be done by ordinance, how can you say it was done legally?
The second one was done as legally as I knew to do, but
We're
I think
talking
that
about
was so
12, we're
I
talking about
guess
13 though, right?
right. But I guess what I'm going into is the only issue that I can say with 13 and where it ended is that I was aware, because I was aware it wasn't done by an ordinance. I was aware at the time I was elected in 13, at the end of 13, so I'm going to have a problem stating that I agree with number 36, that it was done by an ordinance, when I know that it wasn't, and it ended up tripping us up the next year, because we're going to have to deal with this again coming into 14.
Again, I've got a problem with it, with the language. And if
Yeah,
it's
the
not
language
going to
is
put in the
okay.
audit that says it's been legally done,
Well, that's what
it's
he's
still
doing.
not been legally done.
That's what he's saying.
So that's on 15, and then on down to where those notes are.
That's what's got to be correct.
Okay, I need to ask one question if I can. We can do one of several things. My conversation with Ms. Daly was to determine whether there was going to be a finding or not dealing with the ordinance resolution. I have no problem saying that there was a finding of noncompliance. I have no problem with that, if that is what it is. But
I think it's clear that.
that's why I question, do I have a compliance issue or do I have an irregularity? And we are just the auditors. if we don't know something, all we can do is ask your legal counsel. I mean, I'm not blaming you.
No,
in
no,
any
no,
way,
because
you know?
when we were talking about 2014, so we're actually gonna deal with it next year.
But you understand, this can't just be a finding then.
But what y'all
Period.
want to, I mean, if that's what y'all want to say, that's what it's going to say, because this is y'all's own.
The way I look at it is the cleanest audit is gonna give us the cleanest path to know what we've got to fix. I look at an audit coming in and saying, you're not in compliant, and therefore you get in compliant. You do what you gotta do to get compliant. And the fact is, we're gonna go into 14 without a budget. We can't just have this show up as a finding in 14, and it will, as it should, until we fix it. We operated for 3 months, not in a budget.
Right.
You're gonna have to be able to track how that started. Do you,
Ms. Ransom, I have no problem showing this fine. Ms. Fazo can interject. We've had many discussions around our office about whether we should report this as a finding, and basically we determine we need to contact legal counsel and determine. And that's the only, I'm fine with either way. I can say it's a compliance finding, or I can say it's not. We addressed it, but I addressed it in the management letter as an irregularity, so I could have evidence to say, hey, this is how we based our opinion.
And even if I go with the regularity, the problem with that is I go back over to that, because like I said, I've read you work for years, way before I was elected. This is what I did as a citizen, was get an audit to try to figure out where we were. So when you get over into the same audit, and the word legally is used in ordinance, when I know it wasn't, the public knows it wasn't, but it doesn't show it, that's, to me, a problem. Is that, is everybody following me on that? Everybody?
Could I interject one more thing? In an accounting term, we have something that's really important to us. It's called sub and sober form. And what it basically means is the intention, the form may not have been exact, but if the substance was what it was, then you can be comfortable with it. It's like if I go and give $500 to somebody, and I do it as charitable or non-charitable, whatever my intention was. That's how we gain comfort with this, between substance over form and advice of legal counsel. This is your audit. So,
to me, irregularities, if we tried to list all of them, it'd be a problem. There's something that is clearly a violation of the charter to me when it comes to spending taxpayers' money, and in doing that, took power from anyone who was in that mayor position from the time that charter was changed. That is tied to the legal, and it's not just this. We've got other ordinances that are going to have to be done correctly from this point on between the council and the mayor, whether it's an audit, whether it's a capital budget, whether it's anything with a penal effect, or that takes money. And it's just, it's the way the charter was written. And that was the one thing I did check, was if the charter states ordinance only, then you've got to defer your charter.
Well, there are cases that say a bit different, but this is y'all's audit. It will read how y'all want it to read.
With the mayor having veto power.
But see, the mayor didn't want to veto, and he agreed to it. So, this is those cases set out that there's irregularities. So the case law, and I told y'all about this to start with, but this is y'all's audit. How you want it to be stated is how it will be stated.
yes, ma'am. That's correct.
My issue with that, so that would be for,
Do we have a determination? Are we saying there should be a compliance finding?
okay, let me ask you this. Is it going to cause a compliance finding going into 14 as an auditor? Yes. The same issue is going to cause us a compliance finding because we had to operate in an emergency budget because we didn't have one because of an ordinance.
This is legal. I'll have to defer to your counsel.
Yes, ma'am, back first here. Got a question? Yes, ma'am.
Can Ms. Stanley clarify, the mayor didn't want veto power?
No, I didn't say he didn't want veto power. I said, I didn't say that.
I mean, what did you just say?
I said that he didn't have a problem with the budget, to veto anything in the budget. That's what he said to me. So
Personally, I don't think none of them ever read it because the same question is in all of them. The ordinances that the budget has never been done by the budget has never been done by ordinance. And you can go back as far as 2000. I went back as far as 2009. And you, Ms. Daly, you were part of the new charter, so you were aware that it had to be done by ordinance.
They didn't want to make amendments. So I will say that. I went back and checked on that. There were changes to our charter that needed to be made. They weren't because they did not want to do other public hearings. So I will say that any changes that were made when that passed through were last made up under the old. Am I correct? okay, I mean, I will say that.
It's always been done by ordinance, so even you go back to, even the old charter was done by ordinance, so that really.
So that's
doesn't-
gonna also,
And it's been done by resolution since the existence of Temple. So there's
No.
the problem.
No, it has not. No, it has not.
It wasn't, it started a few years ago. It started changed that. They weren't doing it by anything because it was a different charter. The council, the mayor didn't have veto
It
power.
was done by resolution.
But that's gonna take me to 31, which is also gonna follow that as far as amending budgets by the applicable laws and regulations, and we didn't do budget amendments.
Again, I want to address, I said accepted as noted in the management letter. The management letter accompanied to discuss the irregularity and the advice of legal counsel. So I want to address that.
All right, so I guess going into that, that's number 31. When it comes to amending budgets, we didn't amend budgets in 13 by ordinance, and there were some amendments that were made and voted on, and then, I don't know, can't quite figure out where they showed up because they still weren't done elsewhere, but we'll figure that out later. One of the other things I have with 33, the financial statements properly classified all funds and activities. And in here, when you say the financial statements, are you talking about just simply the bank statements classify all the funds, or even our in-house accounts within our TDS system?
This whole thing is our financial statements that is presented right here. This is dealing with the 2013 audit. All adjustments have been made with Felicia the other day. Your TBS records agree with these audit totals. We checked it the other day. All adjustments have been made.
I mean, like properly classifying the funds.
Yes, ma'am. I'm a CPA with governmental auditing experience, and I know what the fund types are and how the classifications
So like
of
book
functions
bag
are.
money shouldn't have been going into water fund and stuff like that.
Yes, and if it happens, and it has happened on occasion where a deposit was made because no one is perfect and something's put in the wrong account, and then it's transferred back to the account. You know, because every single time there's a spreadsheet that's done. I know how the controls work around here. There's a spreadsheet done of daily totals, and those are reconciled daily. And we do some cash testing on a month and tie it back to the bank statement. You know, we do some testing. That's what we do. We test the system. And those receipts tie back. Also, if there is an error where money got deposited in the wrong account, it's either reclassified as a liability, like due back to the general fund, and or paid back immediately. As of the end of this date, there is nothing due back to the general fund from water fund except for the bond payment and the payroll. So there was not anything that had not already been transferred back that we're aware of. And if there is, there is no material items. Remember, the purpose of this audit is risk of material misstatement. We're saying that they are not materially misstated. Am I saying there may not be something wrong by a few $100 or $1,000? Absolutely, can't say that because we don't test to the minute level and every single thing in the city.
Right. So what I'm saying is with funds classified, if they were, the fact that going into this new year, we have a separate account for things such as Shop with a Cop. We have a separate account that are classified as donations accounts, which they were not before. So that's not something that was a problem as long as they just came in and went wherever and went back into a different fund. They were just put into general money.
Can Ms. Fazer have some liberty to speak because she is.
Was it number 31 we're talking about?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the funds
I
classified.
thought your original question was when it said categories of the financial statements,
No, I'm for the classification of the
classification
funds. Yeah.
of funds in that financial statement only.
Okay.
If-
But when we had other things coming in, if we didn't have them broke out and classified into somewhere else, I mean, basically you're working with the information given to you. So if you had funds that were moved between the wrong classified, restricted, non-restricted, so in other words, if restricted money gets taken from a restricted account, put in a non-restricted account, you would have been able to follow that, or you would have seen that.
Yes, ma'am. The numbers would have been there. Obviously, the amount. There's two things. There's the balance sheet, which is the picture. Okay. I would refer you to page 9 of the audit. If you look at the bottom, you'll see in the governmental. Well, actually, page 9 won't be as well. Look at page 11. If you look at the bottom, you'll see the general fund, and you'll see restricted. There are restricted funds for general fund contributions. Those are the balancing in Shop for a Cop for the Veterans Memorial. I think that may have actually gone away. I don't know. I can't remember off the top of my head. But those accounts that are designated for a specific purpose, those funds are restricted to that purpose, and it's reflected right in that 6,078 number.
And that 6,078 is reflecting corrections where they might have been deposited in other accounts as long as they were moved back by the year end.
If they were moved back by the year end, then they're in that account. If the shop for a cop balance is $2,500, then that $2,500 is in this account. Again, we're dealing with materiality. Could there be something in a wrong account that's, a few dollars here and there? Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
Right, but like if debt service money was put in debt service and you took it back and put it in general fund, you'd have found that. You were saying something like that, correct?
Yes.
All right. The number, and that goes into what policy, because I was looking, where does the policy come from that talks about whether or not the first apply the restricted or unrestricted resources? Where is that at?
It's in here, yes, ma'am. Again, in the interest of some time, I went over every single one of these things from the other day. All these items.
It's not fine.
Excuse me?
You all just have to explain it to them.
Yeah, okay. But what I want to say is, just for clarity, that I went through all these to the point of, we found it in the audit report and I showed it that it did exist. I just want to say that. I will show it to you again.
And I just want to know where the policy, if it was a policy that was here at the city or if it was a policy that you just used as accounting principles with the restricted money.
No. Okay, a couple of years ago, there was a new GASB pronouncement, which is the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, which gives all the statements that are used for these financial statements. And there were some changes about committed, assigned, different definitions of terms. At that time, the council passed a policy, which I also received, about which of those would first be done. Kim Hope, the city administrator at the time, drafted that policy and gave me a copy of it, and it was approved. All that information is here in your financial statements in the footnotes. I will find the page to reference you, beginning on page 24. For the statement you were making, on page 25, flow assumptions. For unrestricted amounts of fund balances, city's policy views fund balance in the following order: committed, assigned, and then unassigned.
I just was having trouble finding it here. We're trying to locate all the policies and procedures to try to get them in one place. And that was when I was going back through minutes and looking. I saw some changes to some certain policies, but I couldn't find exactly where that one was. When we get into and for me, when we get to the next part about the different issues, and we could,
Where are we at?
when you get into the part where, and mine may be out of order because when I picked it up, it wasn't in order. It talks about it starts with the segregation duties and the payroll and the early payroll relocation, and it goes on down to the different things that I guess are, I don't know which.
These are management comments.
They're just comments.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is management as in our management commenting back to us?
No.
Or is this you?
This is our letter
commenting
commenting
to us?
to you. Yeah, this is basically saying we've audited all this stuff. This is the kind of stuff that you can improve, that we saw. Some of it's findings, some of it's suggestions.
Okay,
It's
so
for,
I want
it's
to
for
make
your
sure
use.
this
Yes.
was for,
Yes,
and
it's for your use. Yes, ma'am.
I'm gonna let Howard, I know he had, but I want to get over here to this interfund receivables and payables.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just gonna ask about the page 3 interfund
Okay,
receivables
I'll come back.
and payables. Yeah. When it says that in prior years we noted about the payroll payments to the water fund by the general fund, and you and I had this conversation, and no matter how much I went back and looked, there's absolutely no way for me to have this explained correctly. Basically, what it says is that in prior years, we noted that payroll payments for the water fund paid by the general fund were treated as transfers. Now, the problem I have with that right there, because that is money that y'all are wanting us to make some type of decision on whether forgiving a debt or moving money or doing something with these, quote, things that were treated as transfers. Every year in the audit, the enterprise fund is its own separate account. It has to operate on its own. It's supposed to be self-sufficient. The fact that it wasn't doing what it was supposed to do led to some problems in 2010. So it's important that this account, for all intent and purposes, is its own account. In the audit, every year, when you get to the enterprise and where the enterprise has its own separate little budget in here, the salaries are in that. They're in the audit as having come out of that enterprise fund. Those salaries are listed in the budget for the enterprise fund. They are never budgeted in the general fund anywhere. So it's not like a transfer of budgeted money is going from general fund over to water fund. That $150,000 is budgeted in the water fund in the budget that we passed. It's showing as having been budgeted in the audit. And yet money's basically sliding under the table from the general fund non-budgeted money, correct, is going from over here over to this account. And I can't even see where that money comes off the general fund excess. But then it appears that possibly in 13, they decided to budget the transfer, maybe, and then it didn't happen after it was possibly budgeted. So where I'm trying to figure out in this is when I'm looking at the enterprise and I'm looking at the water and sewer fund and I'm seeing that budgets are audited in the audit every year, those salaries are considered in that part of the audit. They're in our budget. So if that money wasn't there, where's that money? If we're moving money from general fund and we're going to forgive moving it from general fund, I'm completely confused. And I can't figure it out.
Okay, Ms. Ransom, first of all, I know the answer to this, I just want you to finish. Georgia law requires for the water fund that the budget, that the expenses would go with the water fund. So that is why the salaries are in the water fund every year, because that is how it's supposed to be. Now, what is established is all of the payroll is paid out of one bank account, the general fund. There's not a single payroll check that does not come out of the general fund. For accounting purposes, a liability is created. So in accounting senses, it would be credit liability, we owe the general fund, and debit salary expenses. Okay, so it's not a physical transfer of money. But by me paying, like if you had a water bill for $50 and I paid it, okay, I paid your water bill. I'm the general fund, you're the water fund. I go and pay your water bill. That was still your water bill, and I show your expense, but I show I transferred money to you. It's really it's paper. It's accounting interest.
And I get that, but where I'm lost on it is the fact that in the budget that we passed, which is a separate line item, we are budgeting out of the water fund $150,000 for their salary in our budget. So if that budget is not paying that $150,000,
the liability is created and that money is owed back. It's just like if I paid your $50 water fund for you, but I wasn't gonna get paid back. You would owe me that money. You didn't have any money or you didn't pay it, and I paid the $50. You owe it back. There is a liability on the books that says, and it's explained in the audit, the interfund payable, $265,000 for the bond payment, and the difference between that is the payroll that the general fund paid for the water.
okay.
In prior years, it still was the same. The water fund, the general fund was still paying the payroll, but the difference was that money that was owed was moved down to a transfer, an accounting entry. It's not cash moving. The cash was when we paid the people.
But then wouldn't a general fund budget those salaries that are being paid out of that general fund?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. It would budget a transfer. It would budget a transfer. And if the
budget is the transfer, it just doesn't. It's taken out of surplus that is not even budgeted, or it's just forgiven and it's never accounted for. It's not.
It is accounted for. It can't not be accounted for.
It's not traceable.
It is traceable. It's traceable on the general fund statement as a transfer out. It's also described in the financial statements as a transfer out.
When I have followed it, it looks as if that extra money goes into operating expenses out of that budget. So that's going to be my question on that is, if it's budgeted in water and sewer, if we're not going to have a separate payroll for water and sewer, then why do we budget and why do we account and audit for payroll in a separate account that it's not having the bank? Why do we do that? Why, and where would that stand a reason to even do that? Because if you're looking at an audit, it looks as if your water fund's making its salaries.
Is the intention that the water fund pay the general fund back for it?
It's been forgiven up to $700,000.
But is the intention, that's like a financial statement. An enterprise is supposed to operate on its own.
Exactly.
And it has payroll. And it's almost like if I was a business and I had payroll, but I didn't have the money to pay for it, I would go borrow it from a bank. But I would still show the expense on my books because I did pay it. And I would still budget those expenses every year because I know my business, my enterprise fund has those expenses to the top right.
But somebody's gonna ask you for that back on that loan.
Right.
They've forgiven up to $700,000
Well, now that's-
of that, and now
that's-
we're being
yeah.
asked to forgive another $150.
Now, that's something that
So
y'all
that's
do
what
have to
I'm
deal with
getting
and
to, is
discuss and
it would have
decide.
been 10.
It's 265.
No, we'd already forgiven up to, it got to
Right
700,000.
now, we have,
But only 150 of that is salary.
right.
But before that, we had done forgiven, it got up to almost $600,000-700,000 that was owed between these two accounts
Yes,
in
that's
the
correct.
audit.
Yes.
And then y'all forgave this lump sum.
Yes.
So since
But several
this
years
has
ago.
been instituted as an enterprise fund, you know, if you're looking at an audit, it looks as if this is self-sufficient, but I'm looking at money owed that's being forgiven, which says it's not making salary.
No. There is nothing like that happening right now. I want you to know that this audit, when you're looking at self-sufficiency, okay, in past years, okay,
We're about 13, we
Well,
gotta
I'm-
forgive 150 of
yeah,
salaries.
okay, in 113, and no, nobody's saying you have to forgive anything. As a matter of fact, right now it's on the books as a liability, which is how I was instructed to leave it.
Right, because we had not voted to,
Yes.
we were asked in a
Yes.
what to forgive, but I'm at the point to where if we either gotta make a change. We either do not include salaries in the water fund if they've never made them.
That's not an
Or we
option.
have to do, then basically water and sewer fund has got to start having the budgeted money transferred and making their salaries.
Yes, and that
And so
would,
that's my point. You understand? So I need that to,
So why don't we just do that next year?
yeah, I mean, the water fund has the money right now to pay it. You know, and this is a history thing, okay? We sort of have to go back to the history of this to understand it. You know, when you talked about how it had accumulated to this large amount, and then the council voted to forgive that debt, all but the bonds at that point in time, and going forward, it was treated as a transfer, okay? Because at the time, it was a transition period trying to get the water fund self-sufficient. Now the water fund is self-sufficient. In 2013, when I discussed with him, the intention was to pay that money back and for the water fund to pay their own. Okay, that was the intention. Before year end, that amount should have been transferred. Okay, it was not transferred, so we have it as a liability at the end of the year that the water fund owes the general fund that money. But the expenses for salary for water fund employees must always be in the water fund. You can't put water salaries in the general fund. It's not even an option. That's not generally accepted accounting principles.
but we're paying them from there every year. So
And
is
we're
that not
record-
generally not accepted
No,
accounting
no,
principles?
we're
That's
recording.
okay.
It
No,
wasn't self-sufficient
we're recording a
last
transfer.
year either.
We're recording a transfer.
But it wasn't self-sufficient. That's-
And I think that's the problem. It's evidently it's not self-sufficient, so it's having to borrow money from the general
Well,
fund.
now it is. It's
But if it
self-sufficient.
is self-sufficient now, maybe you might want to maybe pay it back every time there's a payroll. You know?
Thank you.
Absolutely.
That would be a very good, or maybe you
Yeah.
separate payroll out of general fund and you have a payroll account, which if at
Absolutely.
any point this had come about,
Yeah.
I might have
Right,
thought an
right.
audit, that might be a need. Because nothing would have ever told me that payroll was being lumped in with a reimbursement for your ball field. If you didn't end up playing rec, you just got reimbursement out of the same fund payroll was being made out of. Everything is lumped into one account. And to me, that's not something that I was able to see because of everything is very separated. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it's not a violation as long as you account for it correctly. But
But
if it makes it clearer, and it's always good to make things more transparent and clearer. And that's absolutely, you could either, like I said, create another payroll account or just pay it out of the water operating. You don't have to have a separate payroll account either way. Or for simplicity, sometimes because with payroll, sometimes you want it to be simple. You can still pay it out of general, but just each month or each pay period, paycheck, whatever, transfer the money from the water directly back to the general to reimburse the exact amount that it paid out.
But if we didn't budget for that, can that be done? Or does that need to wait until we read?
But you do budget.
But
you
they
do budget for it.
But we
To pay it out?
But we
No,
didn't ever pay it.
what you do is you budget for water salaries in the water fund.
We didn't,
Yeah.
the last time that was the problem, I went back and looked. So that's where I guess I was going to. The money to pay back was never budgeted to pay back. It's never showed up in the budget to pay it
And that's why
back.
it's always got to be.
You mean to pay back the old part or the current
Any of
part?
it, current or old. It's
So y'all
never-
didn't budget salaries?
Not the
Yes,
water.
they did.
That's my
Yes, they
point.
did. Salaries were budgeted in the water
Just, we
department.
never took them out of it.
They were budgeted in the enterprise fund, but they were never budgeted as an expense to come back to the payment. In other words, if you look at our budget, you've got your general budget. Your general budget lists all the salaries that are paid out of the general fund. It doesn't list the water employees as being paid out. of the
And it
general
should.
fund.
It should.
Okay, they're over here with the water
Right,
fund.
right.
But there is no money in the general budget that shows transferring and having that money go back over to fund water. It's just a surplus and it's
Yeah,
not
you
tracked.
usually don't
Does that make
budget
sense?
something that you know, I guess if you knew that they weren't gonna be able to pay it back, but you usually don't budget something that might or might not happen. You
So
know?
I guess the thing is if, okay, we'll just go ahead and say in years past, it's never been paid back. They forgave $500 million worth of salaries. But let's say going forward, we want that to be a true self-sufficient fund. We want to set rates, the public understand why the rates are the way they are, because we need this fund to support itself. What is the best, most honest, accountable way that somebody can pick up an audit or pick up a budget and know that that $150,000 for water salaries is being paid from that water revenue account, even if we, how do you do that?
And when you said the 150, are you talking about the old or the current?
Let's just say currently, it's gonna be currently 100, let's just say
Well, the way it's done
2039.
now, it's showing that. Right now, the way it's showing now, we show the expense of the water payroll in the water
And the
fund.
liability.
And, yeah, on the balance sheet, but in the P&L, I call it P&L, where you show the income and expenses. On the enterprise fund, the water fund, the salaries for the water fund are expensed in the water fund.
Okay, but then how does the council take that money from the general and move it over there if it's not budgeted to come out of the general fund? That's the problem.
Again, yeah,
So do we
that's
pretty
a
much have
balance
to
sheet
do we have to
item.
Exactly.
forgive this year and then set it up correctly the next year?
It's really not going to affect the budget. It's really going to be cash flow. It'll affect cash flow, but it's a balance sheet item. Right now in the general fund, you have a receivable from the water fund. The water fund owes us money, okay? When the water fund pays that money, it is going to credit the bank account, go out of the bank account, and it's going to relieve that liability. It's just like paying a bill. You know, you put the bill in the period in which the bill occurred, regardless of when you paid it.
But if this is, okay, here's my problem, this is taxpayers' bill. So if I don't show the taxpayers that that money's coming out of a general fund to pay a bill in another fund, I kind of got a problem. And if
But we are showing that it's coming out of
We've
general
already
fund.
shown it, but we don't show anywhere in our budget that we're gonna pay it on the general side.
We've already
And that's a management decision that y'all do have to make.
That's where,
we've already showed the liability, so you actually are already liable for it. It's like you building a credit card. You owe it once you made that charge. Okay, once the general fund paid that payroll, they owe the money. You know, the water fund owes the money to the general fund.
I think at this point, it's just that y'all now have a decision to make of how to pay it back, when to pay it back, how not to pay it back or not to pay it back. And you have to,
how do you not do this year? Because every year it's a forgivable debt that to me is not shown accurately in a budget or in it. To me, it's not inaccurate. If I'm looking at an audit, it appears that the water and sewer fund's making its own salaries, unless you go down and look at a transfer in and transfer out. And the way it's described in notes is an allowable and reimbursable expense. You don't know it's payroll until this year. Because I remember I pulled a note and said, these notes did not tell me what this money is owed for.
It
This
says-
year it did.
This audit report is not detailed. I mean, it's classified and it's done based on general accepted accounting principles, and it's done to a level that's supposed to be done, and the budgets are in there and done the way it's supposed to be done.
Right, but if you have let's just say they got up $700,000 and a citizen gets a copy of the audit, and there's $600-something thousand owed between the water fund and the general fund for allowable and reimbursable expenses.
Come up to
Then
City
they-
Hall
then
and
they
find
come-
out the
they
detail.
come up and
I
ask.
did.
Open records request.
Well, I did. And it took, you sitting up here before I knew $265,000 of that was a bond
if
payment.
you-
So there's a problem.
Ms. Ransom, I also want to address the fact that in a few minutes I gave you your answer.
Exactly.
And
You're
I-
here for a limited time and you're non-biased. You're not supposed to be a part of who answers the citizens' comments or questions. You're in and you're out.
Right.
So the fact that I did have to come and catch you during an audit and ask the question to me, representing citizens, is a problem where if they get a copy of the audit and it says this is for reimbursable expenses for salaries or for a bond payment, then you know what it's owed back for.
We're gonna add-
and these things are the type of things that y'all need to know about, so that when somebody does come, you'll know how to answer it.
Yeah, and
But it is presented the correct way now for GAAP and financial statement purposes. But, you know, your reality here, you know,
And I'm gonna I know he's got questions about that, but I need to flip over to some of the numbers because this is one of the problems that I had with going into this audit. And it had to do, and I'm only gonna deal with the SPLOST because there were some of the others, but I'm gonna start with just page 38. Now, it's gonna be 38 in here, and I'm gonna pull out my old ones too. The problem I have on the squash figures is that the figures and the numbers don't match, and I already know there's at least 30,000 off in one place just from the things that I have. And you started doing the audit here for us in what year? Is it like 10 or 9?
2009.
2009. Okay. And I've given, been wanting to be able to follow me on it, but of course, I didn't make myself my own copies, so I'm in.
Ms. Ransom, before we get too far in this, can I solve this right away? This statement right here is absolutely 100% correct. I have a detail of every expense that's in here, detailed out. I will give that to you.
Well, then what I want you to do is walk me through the 30,000 that I can't find.
Okay.
And
Now,
then-
there was some, now, obviously, I don't have that right here with me.
Well, it'll go into your 12, which is here, and into the 13.
Okay, but there were some corrected statements, which also I don't have here, and also you've received.
Well, right, and I got the ones off Carl Benson, and they're not gonna, let's just.
Well, no. I'm not talking about the ones off Carl Benson.
So you've edited 12 since Carl Benson?
No. Carl Benson was the initial audit that was submitted, okay? Then there was a correction made. What happened, this happens every year. The audit gets submitted, the Department of Audits receives that audit, and they will review it. Okay, so there's another thorough review process done besides ours. What had actually happened in this case, accidentally, what had happened was we had rolled over the previous year's numbers, and so we didn't add the next year's numbers.
Yeah,
Okay.
let me walk you through, this is going to be a little bit complicated than that. Let's just start with, first off, you started doing it in 09. And right now I'm just going to deal with what's on the 2008 squash. In 2009,
Ms. Ransom, I'm not prepared, I'm going to just let you know, I'm not prepared to address the past 4 years.
That's fine.
Okay,
Okay, you said this
but
one
no, what I'm
time.
saying is, I'm not trying to be rude either. I want you to understand this. This is an accurate statement.
then explain to me when I get there, and if you can tell me, when you're $700,000 off something that I've got a copy of, that I think I pretty well know what happened and why it's a misprint. But when there's 30,000 I can't find, I just simply want you to explain it, okay, before we put our signature on something. Part of it, but no, because I've got it in a second. On the 2009, what ended up bothering me about 9 is we start with our 2008, and if you've got the 2000 on there, you can maybe find that one. On our 2008 is when we start with our expenditures of this 08 squash that you're basically is what we're in right now. And we've got administrative projects, everything is just zero all the way across, other than this little 20,000 that went for transportation projects, and this is what's in our city book. It matches the copy I got. Okay, it's pretty much, just want you to kind of follow that number.
Yep.
When we get to 2010, let me find what I've done with 10. When we get to 2010, if you look under administrative projects, we spent $30,557. This matches the book, it matches my copy, and it matches Carl Benson. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
$30,000. But when we flip the page and we go into the 2011, that $30,000's gone.
It's not gone, Ms. Ransom. This is the error.
Okay.
This is the error. Remember what I just said?
Yep.
In 2011, what happened was accidentally we did not roll over the prior year's final numbers.
Exactly.
We accidentally left the same current number.
Okay, so let's just follow that.
This is not an accurate report.
Okay, that's 30,000. This is the one that is still on file at Carl Benson. It's still the copy that's in our book.
Okay, it may be on file at Carl Benson. The Department of Audits has the corrected schedule, and that is the one that matters.
But it's also what's still in a book that anybody's going to be given a copy
Everyone
of
that is
for
given a
city.
copy of that audit was also requested, and I have the email to also get a copy of the corrected schedule. I'm not a perfect person,
Nope,
Ms. Ransom.
but let me just follow this out with you. So let's go to 2012.
Kevin, you need to listen to her.
Yes, sir. I am.
If we go to 2012, and we get over here to this 2000, well, we've got the 208, 235 as being the total that's spent for administrative projects, okay? And then when I'm looking at what we're looking at having to do in 13, the only thing.
Hold one
that-
second. I'm trying to follow you. Will you restate that?
Okay.
What
This
year
is
do you
what's on
want?
the Carl Vinson. If we go, we got the 30,000 that kind of didn't get brought over for a prior year. But then whenever we get to 2012, this is what's on Carl Vinson. And I've got my copy in my book, and it's going to be, my copy is actually different than this. And what I'm hoping is that my copy may be part of the revised. But what's on the Carl Vinson Institute shows $208,233 is what Carl Vincent has for 2012 as a total. Now, what I have in my copy that was given to me, my copy shows $238,790.
It's 208,
Exactly. Then whenever you flip over to the copy that's in the book, the city's copy, it's the 208,233.
and that's.
And the corrected schedule.
Okay.
The 30,557 corrected schedule should show the correct number. I don't, like I said,
But what I'm making sure is that this 208,233 is the corrected.
I don't know which one's, I'm not prepared right now to know which one's correct.
Well,
I would think, let's see, if the 208,233, there was one year that the prior number did not come over correctly. Then what happened the next year was we used the corrected numbers from the
Let's
report.
say it's the 238,970. Let's just say
That's probably correct.
let's just say that's the correct number.
Okay.
So if I take that, then I'm gonna walk over here and under prior years, I've got the 151,170 that shows up as the prior year on the 13 audit, plus this 60,000 of other expenses. And I don't have the calculator with me, but if I take this, which you're showing as the 158,170, and I add the, well, actually, that would include the pro. Let's just say I'll go ahead and add the 60,360. What is that? Let's do the 158,170 that's brought over for prior years,
You also
and
look
the
at the,
6360.
And a lot for the 20,000.
yes.
20,200.
No, with the.
Okay, and then do the 155,660. Not getting 374.
Do you see the asterisk on the 2013
Yeah, and I can
report?
get the 20,260 to add into the part with the water and sewer. I just can't get it to equal that number when I try to put it back into the admin.
It comes out of the admin. I'm not prepared to do this right now.
Okay.
I have a perfect schedule. I've also given it to Ms. Wall. She has a copy of it, of the SPLOST expenditures. It details out every single expenditure, how it ties to the depreciation schedule, how it ties to the corrected audit reports that the Department of Audits has. If you would like to third-party confirm that the Department of Audits has the correct numbers, you can.
But we'll go back
What I'm
and check
saying
it.
is, when you do this, and this total for 12, let's just say that this number is the correct. Let's say he's put the 30,000 that was left off on from one year to the next, and let's just say we end up with this 238,790 as being the correct number. That total would be what wrapped over into our prior year's total. It doesn't. The prior year's total is at 158,170.
Plus the
This-
60,360.
Then we're going to add the 60,360, which is what I was trying to do. And I still get,
I need, if I have the corrected reports that were sent to the Department of Audits, I could, if they all add across.
well, and like I said, this right here, if I'm going to assume this one matches hers, this matches, the only thing it doesn't match is what's at the city, which I'm going to assume this is the 12, so that there was a correction to 12.
Yes, there was a
So if there was a
correction.
correction to 12, and let's just assume that this 238,790 is the total that was spent in 12, then if I do,
Not spent in 12, I think that's the cumulative total.
right, but that's going to be what carries over as to the prior year for 13, which is the one we're in looking at now.
Okay?
So let me go.
All right, take that number, subtract 20,260, and see if that's not the
Let me
correct
do
number.
this. 158, 170.
Yes, ma'am.
So 130.
Plus 60,360.
158, 170. do this line item, you bring over the prior years, the 158, 170.
Can't hear you. Can't hear you. I cannot hear you. I cannot hear you. Excuse me, Mayor. I cannot hear you.
So, the prior year amounts of 2260 are reallocated to correct project line items.
Yes, ma'am.
So they're gonna be added the exact same amount between the water.
One's gonna go up, one's gonna go down.
One's gonna go up, one's gonna go down. So, if I add it up, I don't want you to go back and add it, I can't get the 374, 146 is the total I'm asking. Okay, so we need to just figure out. So that's one.
Okay, just make a note of that.
You'll just
we'll
make
go
a
back
note and
tomorrow.
see about the, where that's gonna come
I asked at the
into play.
beginning of this, can I address, I have a perfect schedule that addresses the correct.
Well, that's what we'll do.
And
Yeah.
ties to this report.
Now, well, we don't have, he said he didn't have the schedule.
I mean, I don't have it with us, but I have a correct schedule. It's actually in the office. I submitted it to Ms. Wall just the other day.
And so, in going, but are you doing it with the 20,000 and doing it with
He
the?
said one will go up, one will go down. So the one that's probably going down is the cost after.
Okay. Now, in 2000 and, was 2009, okay, and this is one of the problems I have, was that in 2008, the city had a 1998 SPLOST account. The 1998 SPLOST account is reported, kept up with, and all of our previous audits. In 2000 and, what year? 2009.
That's when Kevin started.
2009 doesn't show up in any more audits. It's just,
There's no activity. There's $17 in that account.
okay.
Material.
When it was last reported, if you look on what we were projected, let's look in 08. If I look in 08, we were projected at the 1.9 million. We'd only spent the 1.7 million. I don't kind of see where that goes because come 09, it's not there. It's not that it had $17 in it. 93 had $17 in it. Accounts were combined, SPLOST accounts were combined. For some reason, 93, which has had no activity and no money in it, has continued to be reported even in this year. While 98, which still had money in it, has not been reported against since 2009. I still get a statement in my packet on the 1998 SPLOST account. In my council packet every month. It's one of the check statements that we get. But I can't find anything on that account in any audit since 2009.
There hasn't been any activity in that account since that time either.
There's been no activity in the 93 account way before that time, but 93 still shows up in every audit, including this one. And 93 doesn't even exist anymore. That one was combined into a 98 SPLOST back in like 2009, I believe.
That would have been,
Probably the 93 and 08 combined.
They're combined in-house into accounts in-house. In-house and the accounting system, they merge under one account number. Don't know why, but I need some information on how come when this 98 stopped being reported in 2009, we were 200,000 plus under the projected revenue, and we actually collected more than projected when I checked at the county end.
we can look back.
So that's
We
chunk
can
of
look
We'll
back
have
at
to
that.
look back at that.
Yeah.
And
I
it's
was
an,
probably doing that audit back then too.
and it's an issue now because we are looking at the 98 being a part of what we're having to request on a ballot in November with library funds. So I need to understand this is dropped completely off our audit
We can look back at that.
since 2009.
Yeah, we'll look back at that.
Okay. In this same thing, and it's going to deal, and I can't find where this was corrected, and I was going to ask if possibly you had corrected it with the department. Maybe it's there, if I can find it. It's going to deal with the police portion of it. If you look in the 2012, did you also make corrections?
What are we talking about?
If you look down at the police department projects for 12, and then you follow that over to the police department projects for 13.
Again, if you have the corrected schedules, which again, Ms. Wall
Well,
has, and
I'm
I'll give
looking
it
at,
to
now
you.
this is the corrected schedule. Let me go back over to here. And this actually, and this is what concerns about the Carl Vinson website. Carl Vinson is where people who want a copy of the audit, and they're told, well, instead of having to pay this, all you have to do is get on the Carl Vinson, you can pull that PDF and you can print it out. Wouldn't that deem important that the Carl Vinson part of our audit was the corrected portion of our audit? If that's where we're referring people to pull out their own copies?
Yes, when the time of the audit is submitted, if there's corrected schedules, it would be the city's responsibility at that same time to send it over to the Carl Vinson Institute.
Because what Carl Vincent shows for 12 and what they'll show for 13 is going to cause, to me, it's a red light, is that our police department projects, it shows that we spent $711,000 just on our police, which I know we didn't. I've got the audits. We did not spend that. But Carl Vinson Institute shows that we're $711,000 of squash money on a PD that, hey, guess what? That's our #1 project, so that's not going to look real good when somebody pulls that up. And then we turn around and submit the 13 that we're sitting here looking at signing. The 13 is actually going to show, because I went back and looked, I was waiting to get this to see what it was going to show. And what the 13 number showed is that we're $171,000 in.
Because
Yeah.
the 2012 included the original estimated
Yes.
cost.
And it was added across, but it's
Yes.
never been corrected on a website that I myself have even
It's-
referred somebody
been-
to go make their copy.
Yeah, but it's been corrected to the Department of Audits, which is where it matters, because that's, I mean, yes, I also
It matters
agree.
right out here. I'm talking about
Yeah.
people looking at a
It
PD
has
for
a-
$700,000.
Yeah, but also at the same time, it does matter here too. I might want to address the public with that also. The corrected schedules were issued to management, and management was instructed. I have the email that anyone who got a copy of the audit was also to get the corrected SPA schedules.
What I did was I pulled, and this was why it became a problem, because I went and pulled 12. And this is what I was given. I was one of the ones that make a copy, so I was given a corrected. And what I was given was this loose leaf paper, and this was the only correction, and it had nothing to do with the audit. It actually is a
That's
correction
appreciation.
with page 27. And it is actually just stuck in here on a loose leaf.
I can't speak to that.
Okay. So my question then is, if Carl Vincent is where anyone who wants to pull up anything on any CD, they ask you what CD, you can punch in any CD and it's going to pull up your audit. So when you're talking about submitting this to Carl Vincent, helping us out with that this year,
I do not submit the report. I do not
you
submit the
help us
report
through
to
it?
Carl Vinson. No, y'all have the login and password. What I'm saying is, right now, I know that there's not somebody in place right now who would have access to that information, but it's here somewhere. What I'm saying is, I know the direction and I would assist you in that. I'm not saying we do it. It's something you do independently. That's not part of our responsibility at
So
all.
did you in the past, have you not
Never. I've
submitted?
never submitted a report for the City of Temple to the Carl Vinson Institute. Management does that.
Go on ahead, Jenna.
Well, I'm so angry right now because I paid to get the audits, and I've got them every year. And now I come to find out that my audit is nothing like the real audit. So, first of all, the city owes me some money back or owes me a correct audit. But who are you supposed to believe now? When you come up here, I'm going to make a call to the Attorney General's office tomorrow and find out why I've got false audits. And number two is the 1998 Splosh Fund. In 2006, I never see where you take out $112,500 for a library project that Mayor Ford bought. It's not showing in your 2006 audit. And your 1998 just disappears after 2008.
No, the figures are, the 98 is something that we need to know, because if you're looking at what was there in 2008, if you're looking at the schedule of what's there in 2008, we are under the collected amount, and when you begin to do the audit in 09, it drops off. So if there was no money in it, we're missing a chunk of expenditures or an audit that shows where those expenditures were made and what took place with that 98 audit. Does that make
Okay,
sense?
we'll look into that. Like I said, my understanding was that the purpose of this meeting was to discuss the 2013 audit, so I want to.
It is, well, it's not in here, and we gotta put the 98 back on
Well,
the
can I
ballot in
clarify
November.
something? The forensic audit, I personally asked to go back to 98, so when we do forensic audit, we'll do it again.
Well, but it's not the books of the forensic audit that I'm worried about. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is, in an audit, we're not accounting for 98, and there's still money in it, and you're still getting a bank statement in your packet that says 1998
But you already
plus.
said it's rolled into the 93.
No, 93 was rolled into 98.
Then
93
maybe
is
they
gone.
just have the heading wrong.
There's still a 93 SPOS account and a 98 SPOS account and a 2003 SPOS account and a 2008 SPOS account, all of which the cash is reconciled and included in the audit.
I think we just need to see why there's a 93, then a 2000 and
It's 93, 98, 2003.
and then it skips 98. It may be like what she said, maybe it should say 98 instead of 93, and the two got rolled together. But we're gonna look at that. I'm sure there's an explanation.
Well, like I said, that one is one we need to be able to clarify for this year. Into the water, we talked about making a prior adjustment
Yes.
for charges. If the charges were incurred, if these overages were incurred, or overbilling issues were incurred from 10, 11, some in 12, maybe more we don't know about yet, how do you go back in and make adjustments for that for prior years in an audit? How does that
Yeah.
work?
Basically, this is what happened with that. Once the amounts were determined, you go back and basically the beginning picture would have been this. The billings were this, and it should have been this. So there was a prior period adjustment for the difference between what was paid and what should have been paid. There's also a schedule that's been given to the city administration.
But how you physically do it, you go back and you change the beginning net assets by that
Yeah, we
amount.
changed the beginning number, and that's what the prior period adjustment reflects. If you want detail that, I have it.
No, what I'm saying is we changed the beginning number of the 2013
Mhm.
Yes.
audit, which is not to make it quite reconciled if you go back and look at 12 or 11 or 10.
Well,
I'm just asking.
Yeah,
and
that's just how you do it, though.
It
Yeah.
wasn't dealt with
Right.
Yes,
in
ma'am.
previous years.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
absolutely
there's-
correct.
There's just no other way
Yeah.
of doing it.
Yes, ma'am. There will be, at the beginning of the year, there was a liability that money was owed back, and it reduced the net assets. Yes, ma'am.
Back to the 93 to 98 thing, even
Louder,
if it was,
please. Speak up louder.
okay,
State where you live.
172 East Johnson Street.
Hey, speak up. Hey.
If you just combine the 93 and 98, and it just had the wrong heading, but it's only got $17 in it, right? But in 98, isn't that what he said? The 93 account
If
has
one of them
17?
does, I know
The
one
bank, the
does.
bank.
Huh?
The bank
Bank
account.
Oh, okay. So, but what does it say
and I'm not
even
going
if
to
it's in
combine
the
the
wrong
banks in our
heading?
system. In our system, they just begin to merge under one account
Uh-huh.
number to be able to pull
It's
up.
one fund. It's in a fund.
And it accounts for
843 has
the
its own
200.
fund number, 08 has its own fund number, and all of a sudden 93 and 98 go up under their own in-house fund number.
Yeah, they have the same fund number. 320 is 93, 98, and 321 is 2003, and fund number 322 is 2000.
But they weren't combined until the year they dropped off this audit, and there was money in it. There was money in it. So I need to know, as we go to do this with this library project, how those two funds end up being up under one fund number, and it drops out of an audit, and it doesn't show back up, while 93, even in this 2013 audit, I'm looking at 93, in here. I'm looking at an audit where you were still auditing 1993. And 1993 has had zero in current year way back. 98 didn't have zero in current year when it goes away. So that's something, 93 is not moving. So it's not like it rolled over and then I can see the expenditure showing in the audit in 93. They're just kind of
Yeah,
gone.
like I said, I don't.
We're gonna look.
Yeah, we can look into that. There's a balance there, and it has to do with the amount of money that's in that account. Yeah,
Is
we
it
can-
200 and, is it 200 and something?
Now, I just know that when it dropped off, we were 200,000 below
Right.
the projected expenditures, and I
Right.
know from the county end, we collected more than was
Right.
projected, but I can't see. What the audit will show you is each project and how much of that money each year went toward which project. I don't know where that money went or what project it was allotted to, because it doesn't show back up in the audit before it's down to
So that money
$17.
just leaked out into somewhere?
It was applied
and y'all are gonna
somewhere, we just
find
got, I
that?
can't see in an audit where it was applied to which account. And the fact that we need to,
And y'all have the ability to find that? Is that what you're saying? That you can go and you can find that 200,000?
well, like I said, we
It's
were
not
under
business.
revenue
We're
when it
gonna-
stopped being
we're gonna-
reported. Yeah, does that make sense?
But then we need to go back to 2006 and find out why, what the 112.5 wasn't taken out.
No, it was actually, the-
Howard, you've got the audits up there from
But they may not be accurate.
well, the thing is, there was,
Yeah,
there
that's
was
true.
225, there was 225,000 that was requested from the 98 splosh. Okay? When 98 splashed, when we began spending 03, 98 was still collecting. You do kind of run into sometimes back there where you collected and you were beginning to collect the next splosh, or you still have money in this splosh that wasn't spent. 98 drops off. So I don't see where 98 went.
No,
from-
what I'm saying in 2006, where it should have been reported that Mayor Ford took out $112,500 from the library for a library fund, in the 2006 audit, it is not reported in there.
Yeah, it's not.
And that's something I brought up at the council meeting years ago.
It's 98.
That I was
actually
escorted
the
out, by
year
the
it was
way.
at. So, under this part, and this is something else that's been very confusing for me, this was confusing for me after I got elected, is that every year when I would get a copy of the city's audit, every year, the city would simply have mainly three things. Two things or three. The lack of segregation of duties. And the response is the exact same time. We concur, we're gonna this, we concur. Well, I asked the council member, did y'all know? Now, I remember back in the day when the audits were presented, and it was a public thing, and I swear I would get a lot of my copies, as there would be copies up here when we came, and I'd get a copy of an audit, and sit down, and people would go through the audit, and you read it down with your copy. When I realized when I was reading it and I saw the exact same replies this time, and I'm thinking, who up here just typed these same responses, we concur, we concur? I mean, who did this? Who has said we concur?
Again,
It's all generic.
no. Listen, this is a draft copy of the audit. When I presented it, I said, this is your audit. I mean, you can say what you want. If you don't concur with the segregation of duties, that's fine. You can say that.
But if every year the city has said we concur and we're taking steps to remedy, but every year it's the same thing, where do you?
Never remedy.
Well, that's why we have to keep
But we're
saying
signing
this. That's
something
why
that says,
we have to
hey,
keep making
we're
this
aware
point.
and we're taking steps and we took steps. So that's where I get into the process of what we're signing, saying that we've done, while I'm looking over here, saying we concur to something that we as a city haven't done.
Doesn't happen.
For small cities like this, and they would say the same thing, segregation of duties is a finding for every single city unless you have 12 people in your accounting department. One who's going to do nothing but take money. This is really something that's always going to be a problem because you're going to have lap over. Somebody's going to need to take money but also did something. And that's why this is here. Again, this is your report. If y'all want to change, if you want to change
I'm trying to figure out
response,
who is the we concur.
No, we do.
this is a draft.
But it's in the ones that want to draft.
I think she's asking, like, who gives you the response from the city?
Yes, it's usually the city manager, or when we present the audit, we present a draft like this every year for approval. If you want to make changes, make changes. That's why we are presenting this to you. Yeah, it's up to management. This is your management response. We record the finding, you give your response. You can say whatever you want to say.
So are you saying that the city manager can just manipulate the numbers any way they want?
Oh, no. This is no.
Accept them that way?
No. This is not numbers. This is the findings. Like segregation of duties is an audit finding that says, because we have limited staff, you can't separate out the duties. Well, we've reported that audit finding, and management has an opportunity to give a response, and that's all it is that management provides that response.
Okay. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to hush and let somebody else talk, I promise. But one of the problems that I've had, and this is one of the reasons I was trying to reach Highland, because I got a problem. This is my biggest problem, other than the budget, with signing this, okay? And it has to do with this one right here with donated leave.
Okay.
And basically what this says is that during the audit, it was noted that accrued vacation time was donated from one employee to another to compensate them during lost time due to a medical illness. And you go on to add that while the city actually profited from this situation as the pay scale of the donee was less than that of the donor, there was no policy in place of how the situation should be handled.
Yes, ma'am.
You flip over to your audit, page 22. I believe it's 22, this one I got it here. So, under compensated absences, the city encourages employees to take their vacations annually, and sick pay is not paid on termination. This was somebody's sick pay that they rolled over and cashed out to an employee who didn't have their sick pay, and he did it at his rate of pay. Not at her rate of pay, and it was not vacation. These people cashed out sick pay, and it was more than one person that cashed out sick pay. And the fact that this audit finding here says this was a one-time vacation, city profited, well, that is not at all what happened.
Wait, no, I don't recall that,
It
because I
was
am pretty sure
sick
y'all
pay.
said that's her rate of pay.
No, he
Yes,
took what he
because they
had
went-
left.
And he gave it to her, and she got it at her rate of pay.
No,
Yes.
it doesn't matter.
Yes,
It's something
yeah,
he
absolutely.
got off. Sick time, not vacation, he cashed out his own vacation pay. It was his sick time, he rolled over.
I thought, it's comp time.
No, salary employees don't
You've
have
got
comp time, but it was his sick pay. It was his sick hours. And
But
it
again,
was the pay of what his sick hours were. And what he had, the check was wrote to her.
I think with this,
yeah.
that it's been brought up, it is a problem y'all have to address. We'll rewrite this in a way you want it to be said, that's fine, but it is something y'all need to deal with. And that's why we
Write
need
it up
to.
that she took something that didn't belong to
It
her.
needs to be changed from the vacation hours to the sick hours, which they were not entitled.
And there was more than one that took sick hours
Yes.
on their way out the door. There wasn't just, there was paid out for sick hours
Every
as
one
well
of
as
them that
vacation
quit.
time.
Everyone that resigned or quit or went to another job got paid for sick hours.
They got paid their sick hours, and they shouldn't,
And so that right there,
according to your audit on page 22.
well, and that is something that at the time, you know,
Again, we're not here when these things happen,
No,
we
no,
just
no.
report on them.
Yeah. This is
what
y'all's
bothered me
report.
with that was when he said during the process of the
Yes.
audit, it was discovered that we, like, in other words, this is y'all saying during the
Yeah.
course of the audit, vacation time, and what, if that's the case, and that's what you have, and it differs from something that was already discovered here, we need to know. what
Yeah,
records
y'all
you
need to
have.
get together.
Yeah.
We need to know what
Well, I will say,
records.
yeah, and I have, we take a risk-based approach, and at the time, the city administrator told me about the situation, so we went, that's where we went to and looked at it, and the time was there, and it had been transferred over, and I noted it to y'all.
And on your.
And also, we have a
It
finding
might
about
be during the
payroll.
course of the audit, not, it was noted, it might be during the course of the audit, it was brought to our attention by management, not that you were sampling records, which is what you would be doing in the course of an audit. Do you understand? And you
No,
find
well,
vacation time.
we take a risk-based approach, when a risk is addressed, that's when we go and attack that risk.
But do you understand what I'm,
Yeah, but it was during, yes, well, that's fine, yes, I disagree.
okay, well, I guess what I'm saying is that if you're sampling and you're sampling everything, if I'm reading this and that tells me that during the course of your audit, you discovered documents where vacation time was paid, when in essence, there are documentations that show it was sick time. So if your documents don't match what's already been given,
Right.
we need to know that.
Okay,
And we need that to be able to be
We
comparable.
need that reflected.
Yeah, and probably whatever the people you're talking about we definitely need to know that.
And we need to know if we were given
Right.
wrong. I mean,
That's the kind of stuff
yeah,
that does need to be told to us.
And we need to make sure that
I mean,
it
we-
was not
Right.
vacation time that he or she did not have, and we were told it was sick. You understand that it could be either way.
It's on the payroll, it's been sick time.
I know it was on payroll, it's been sick time, but I guess what I'm saying is if your records show vacation time on our same payroll, that is something that as a city.
Yeah. We need to compare stories, it sounds like.
Exactly.
And then we got employees coming back and getting their sick time after they've been gone for almost a month.
Who's letting that happen?
We don't,
Well, probably the payroll clerk at the time. We had one to leave in December, and they were coming back on January the 10th, giving sick pay.
Does this all happen and then y'all just find out? I mean, how do y'all find out about
no,
this?
this was all brought to our attention in February and March, and so that's.
Oh,
where-
after it happened? After it happened?
When
Yeah,
the
after I asked for
employees-
payroll.
When the employees were leaving, they were just cashing out all this vacation time and all this sick time.
But like I
They weren't
said,
entitled to
but
it.
part of the issue is that I operated under the assumption, based on what was told to me, that it was vacation time and we had no policy against them taking it and it was accrued. And then records from payroll that are here very clearly showed a lot of it was sick time. So what I need to know is, did your records indicate vacation time?
I'll look
Or
back-
did,
I'll
or
look
was
back
it
at it.
actually accrued sick
I'll look
time?
back-
Because if
I'll look
so,
back
we've
at
got
it.
a problem.
We'll look at
Yeah,
that.
I have something on it.
So I don't want to sign off that this was a one-time thing with vacation time that the city profited.
That's not- this
Because I
is-
don't believe.
Now, that's not something you sign off on.
This is not
Okay.
anything. This is a for-your information. That comment letter is for
And
your
this,
information.
so this is something like, well, we'd write it if
Yeah.
we've written it wrong.
Now, this is the other concern I'd have about the accuracy of this. I would want to make sure also that this policy that we've had here is accurate.
The thing is, from what I was told, when I was told it was vacation time, I was also indicated that that policy was, they don't necessarily lose their sick time, but they can't get paid out for their sick time accrues to a certain level and then it stops, but it's not a cash out thing. So when it come back under some documentations that it was actually, according to payroll, sick time, that brought up another area of concern. So then whenever I see this, and it's listed again as vacation time, and that we could have profited from the sick, then I'm like, no, it's one or the other. So if your documents show one thing, we need to get them back to us in case that causes, because what bothered me about this is where it talked about the sick time is not something that you're like accruing within here. So
Right.
if it is actually sick time and there is something accruing, is that going to affect the outcome of our audit and payroll? I mean, is that
It's not going to affect the outcome of anything. The audit, okay, you have to understand the numbers and things. The numbers are the numbers. You know, the salaries are the salaries. They're reflected in the salary expense of what went out. So it won't affect any of that.
So we just need to make sure.
This is a
that-
policy and procedure
Yeah.
thing that y'all
And
need
we've
to
also
get a handle on.
we've also reported a finding about payroll issues.
Right.
You know, and this policy and what's the policy, and you know, really to this end, we've done everything we're responsible for. We've reported it. Mr. Mayor, do you have something?
Mr. Mayor, I'm a little confused. Most of my bookkeeping and accounting experience has been in the private sector and not involved in government. And in my experience, bringing in an audit is like a balance and check of an organization to make sure that things are the procedure is being done correctly. And I'm not seeing that anything was checked here on our procedures that money was put properly in the proper place. So why would we even have an audit if we don't have someone doing a balance and check?
The audit, again, the purpose of the audit is to express, we're presented financial data and financial statements. And our job is to issue an opinion on that, and we obtain audit evidence by doing sampling. Sampling is how we test things. We'll also take a risk-based approach where if we find something or hear something, we respond more to that. Like, example, this payroll thing was brought to my attention and we went and looked at it and we're satisfied with it. But we will look back at it.
Right, because
But I
my
know
satisfied,
that
your
numbers
satisfied aren't.
can very easily be manipulated. It's done every single day.
Well, and that was.
And-
But again, that's management's responsibility. Management has a responsibility here to prevent, to have procedures in place to prevent and detect fraud
But
in a timely manner.
you're supposed to be an outside agency to help us do a balance and check on that management.
Right.
We do.
Because that's why the citizens of Temple hire you as a balance and check to make sure that our management is doing what they're supposed to be doing.
And I can agree, and that's where I come into a problem with Holly or the mayor agreeing with these findings as management if they don't match something that as a council member in the position that you're in, they're not asking management or a member of the staff to sign this. They're asking an elected official to sign this who was not a part.
Actually, management would sign it.
Yes.
Had we had somebody.
Had you had a city administrator,
Okay.
city administrator.
And that brings me to my next question. Because I had asked, I'm going to say June, early June, and I was told that the audit, the draft audit was done, and actually he expected it to be on our July packet. So my assumption was, you know, that at least through, you know, your figures, whatever, would go through June, and I believe the date that we get on here, what's the date you give us, as of July 11th?
July 11th, yes ma'am, which is the date for the
Okay.
legal opinion.
And so, on this, the monthly deposit of debt service account, And when we get to, during the course of the audit, it's noted, and we will, this is the part where about the transfer and whatever of the funds, and about how much the bond covenant require at the interest and the payment. And it says additionally, bank service charges were charged on these accounts because there was no activity. You recommend the approach that measures be put in place to ensure compliance of bond. And this is in a couple of different places, within our audit. When we get into like our debt service account, that's considered a restricted fund account, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
But it's included within our audit as not a major fund, but it's actually an account.
It's in the water fund. Yes, ma'am.
In reading these statements, it almost to me would appear as if it was noted that this maybe wasn't done, but it had been done. I mean, I guess.
It's the timing, okay? This is a management comment to address that bond covenant said you need to do this every month, okay? There were situations where people were out, it didn't get done for maybe 3 months. We're just letting you know, hey, it needs to be every month that this amount is transferred over. That's why you incur bank charges. This is informational.
So would it be a finding? Is it an audit finding if anything happens within an account that shouldn't happen?
Yes, if something material happens within that account, yes, it would be a finding. But this is not a finding because I actually spoke with another person in our office. We discussed it. Everything, all the money got transferred. It was there.
You're going into 13, so okay. The money got there and it was there, and this is where I'm going to get in now, and we'll go back and check with your records on the dates paid. Now, when you do like the wiring fees, those and the bank service fees, those things should you're saying they should be reimbursed out of the water fund, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So the water fund would be you just transfer that back into the debt service account?
The debt service account is really a trust account. Okay, if you owe $600,000 a year for your principal and interest, every month $50,000 needs to go in there. That way when the bond payments come out, they come out. It's that simple. But if you don't transfer it a month and then they charge a $30, $40 bank charge against you, then you're going to make your same payments. Guess what's going to happen when the bond payment comes out? If you had bank charges and you didn't reimburse it from the water fund, you got a negative balance. And that's what we're addressing here. This is a comment to help you. That's why we do this. We do this to help y'all.
So any reason why, because it was going on through 12 and through 13, is there any reason why that might not have been commented to help us prior to it happening?
It happened in 13.
No, I'm talking about, if I could have seen that maybe in the 12 audit, it might have made a little bit of sense.
It happened in 12.
Well, but we've not been moving bank fees over. We've not ever been moving transfer.
They were not being charged bank fees because the amounts were being transferred. This is a this year issue.
And these are things you're supposed to know anyway.
Yeah.
But when we see you didn't know it,
We address it. This is to help you. I mean, really, these aren't findings. These are things that, hey, we noticed this. You obviously don't want your debt service fund to go negative for, and it's not. We're talking $20. A bank charge came out. If it did get refunded, then the payment comes out. It's just like at home, if you had a return check that happened, and then you bounced the check and you didn't mean to.
Does the audit have anything to do, if the money is supposed to be moved and because the revenue bonds are tied into the reporting of our audit, I mean, they're on a separate page, they're in here, it's all a part of our audit. As a matter of fact, I believe through the completion of your audit is what we base the letter of compliance on, based on the figures and things that you do. So I would say that the revenue bonds are very tied up, and those figures and amounts that we move are very tied up into this audit.
Yes.
If the money was not moved in 2013 every month, would that have not been a finding that the money was not being moved in the manner that it should have been moved every month?
Again, it could be. If you want to make it a finding, we can make it a finding.
I'm just asking. I mean, when you come across that, let's say you're up and you're doing an audit, and you come across and you're like, hey, you haven't moved this in 4 months. I've got to note you for that. Who teams people so they know what they have to do?
Yeah, this is why we wrote you this letter. This is why you have these comments, so you can make improvements. Again, it was not a material thing. All the money got there in order to make the payment. All the payments were made, and they were made on time. And it was not material differences. So there was not. We'll be glad to report it if you'd like to.
You understand what I'm saying? If you don't, no, let's just say changeover in staff.
Yeah.
And somebody claims we had no clue You sat right here with me. When I said, you mean to tell me they've not been moved, and you're like, what? You haven't moved it? Nobody knew.
Right, nobody knew to.
Nobody knew.
And that's a
to.
training, that's not us, that's a training thing. I mean, y'all are responsible for the city, and you're responsible for understanding, and you're doing a great job. And I want to say, my tone has been kind of, because it's me. But it's just how I am. But I appreciate this. You don't know how much I appreciate you care. Because a lot of people don't care. And I want you to know that.
The bond issue thing has been resolved because it's going into the account every month.
Has it been caught up? I think it's been caught up.
We're
Hasn't
not
it?
there yet. We are going to get there. We are not there yet. We will get there.
But again, that's
And that's going to come into something that happens next year. And and this is my biggest thing, if we're going to sit here and we agree to these 42 things, and I've been unable to locate a letter up here on any previous audit that signed that had anything kind of like this, maybe nothing that was
But that's
this.
because management always signs.
Yeah, but I
We
can find the
never got
copy of where management signed what they,
it should be up here somewhere.
it should be, but that's not.
It's up here somewhere.
And then it may be that we've landed or come across it at some point that I did.
But I also submitted to Felicia the last 2 years. She requested them, and I submitted them.
And so my question is, as we're sitting here agreeing to this, and one of the things, and this is no offense to anyone, I believe that anything that we pay $27,000 to $30,000 a year for the taxpayers' dollars should be bid out. I believe that an audit should be bid out. It is not something I can find that's been done in quite a while. We were late this year with even being able, we appreciate the fact y'all could come in because we were past a point with the turnover to have time to bid out an audit without putting us even further behind. But in saying that, if we're gonna, next year, whether it's this company or another firm, we're already gonna have a bunch of issues that are gonna be findings, just simply for things that happened between January and June of this year.
Right.
And if we're concurring right here that none of these problems existed in 2013 that we were aware of, that's not setting up for any fix going into 2014 to explain what we did have to do the first 6 months of this year. Is anybody following?
Unless it's addressed in his management letter, and the reason why it's not in the audit is to help us.
Okay. But let me ask you something. When you get on Carl Vinson Institute, which is
But
where
he
you're,
said it's not right.
but what you're told to do, when you get on there, they're not going to see management's letter at the end of even this year that's done right.
That's never in them.
Exactly.
This is for
But
you.
what they're going to see and what the public is going to see is problems. And then the public's going to see audits that get better, or they're going to see audits that get worse. The audit is a sign to me, as a citizen, how well their taxpayer dollars are being managed. And that's even with me sitting up here, and I'm already telling you, we're going to have issues from January, February, March, and April. We'll have to. I won't be
But he
okay
just
that we
said
don't.
if he knows that the amounts, the money is right. He's already said he is 100% sure the money is right. So if it's the money that we're worried about, it's right.
But you can say you're 100% sure the money's right based on information that he may have sampled or not sampled. So what happens if he's got paperwork or documents that show just what this says right here, not only it was vacation time, and he's holding the same payroll sheet, they're going to say it was sick time. Something's not right. That's a payroll, that's a count, that's
Where
different.
did he get his sheets?
Right here.
Well, I don't know that they're right.
But they were given to him.
They were
Right
given them
here.
to me, and that was the information that I was provided at the time.
Which was.
I have a copy. I can get it out. We'll resolve it. We'll resolve it.
And like I said, if I'm looking at, especially when it comes down to the 98, and when it comes down to
I have a note for 98 sick time to address those.
And
Anything,
also,
anything
what-
else? Anything else you want to address?
how do you miss? If you're doing an audit, how do we get the overcharges in water and sewer and those type of humongous overcharges, and none of that be found in a yearly audit? How does that happen?
I can easily explain how that happens. And Jim actually assisted. He assisted with helping to find this problem. Generally, water billing, individual billings are considered low risk because of the issue that on the other end there's somebody paying the bill or questioning the bill. In these situations, the bill was being paid by the other party with no, the check and balance is, the other person.
But it's not just one other person.
Oh, I know. Some of it was in meter reading. We don't go out, as part of our audits, we don't go out and read meters and make sure that the meter reading was
Do
correct.
you audit error reads when you come in? Do you audit the error reads that the city has?
We look at error reads, yes. And what they do, what they've done in the past is they'll look at, what their bill, usually when it's an error read, it jumps out at you. It's something that jumps off the board. The bill's usually $200 a month. This year it was $4,000. Okay? Well, let's look and see what the problem was, and then they make an adjustment to bring it down $3,800 consistent with a normal bill.
So, error reads are part of an audit. So when y'all come in, y'all do sample the error reads.
We test some of them when there is a risk. Now, I will say in the past few years, we have not addressed an additional risk of this because in a risk-based approach audit, which is subject to auditor's judgment, we decide which areas to go further in. It's a big picture. We're looking for materiality, okay? And when we're looking at how much a month, you can do analytical procedures like, okay, if the billing's $120,000 a month, okay? That's what you expect billing to be. That's what it has. And we multiply that by 12 months, and we compare that to the actual revenues, and it looks fairly consistent. No additional procedures deemed necessary, move forward.
But a simple printout.
This was not a
But
simple.
I'm saying, no, I'm just saying that, but if a simple printout that I asked for, just a simple printout, shows that in January of 13, we sold 300,000 or 400,000 gallons more than we bought. The next month, we bought 500,000-600,000 more than we sold. The next month, we're $1 million off. The next month, we're $2 million. That would have indicated in 13 there was a problem.
Yes,
Because every
and-
single month, that was one simple piece of paper.
Yes,
One
ma'am.
piece of
And we that's exactly what we did. We
Yeah,
found
I
that.
got you to do that after the fact. Remember, I said, can you go get Harris to give me January to December and let's see what we're buying versus what we're sold. Nothing matched, not one month of the whole year for 13 between consumption and stuff and what was sold.
We found it, and there was a large variance this year. And because of that large variance, we increased the risk and we responded. And we looked deeper into the bills, and that's how we found those issues.
Are error reads ever provided to you as an auditor as a part of your audit?
If requested.
And so up until this year, when we had already requested and paid a contract person to come in, y'all never really requested to see the error reads since we had switched over to the new REUs.
There's a control system in place. Again, the risk is low because there's somebody on the other side. When there's an error read, the person comes up here, my water bill was too high, and then there's an adjustment made, and we've looked at those adjustments, but this particular situation was situations where people were being billed at 10 times. The meter reading was read to the nearest 100 when it should have been to the 1,000. Situation like that. Mr. Baxter is very knowledgeable of this, and he was a great assistance in helping to locate this, and we found the problem and tackled it. But that's
No, it's not been tackled yet. I mean, this is going to.
yeah. There's still more stuff going forward. But we've
My issue
identified.
is that since the REUs went in, I cannot see where anything within our water department, which was tied into our bond, which was tied into even the $2 admin fee, and everything that was put in to try to make a bond payment. People's water rates went up, and no matter what they use, that has been a big complaint, was our water rates. So then to have someone come in and find serious problems that we had to pay to come in within our water department, and I don't think we've found all of them yet. I've got to feel this is a monster that is just growing. So my question is, were error reads, regular citizens' error reads, at any point since the bond was changed over, a part of what was done as a regular audit? Since that is an enterprise fund, and all of that revenue in that fund is generated from that water and sewer system, was the revenue on that side and how they obtained it ever part of our audit?
The revenue was tested based on analytical procedures and monthly billing and anticipated. We do analytics. We see what we would expect it to be. What was it last year? What was it this year? How much did it go up? Did it go up a percentage more than we expected? Less than expected? Do we think there could be a material modification that needs to be required? If not, we move on because we have to. We tackle material items. So to answer your question, no. And the reason why no is because it's low risk. There was someone on the other side of the bill who was paying the bill. And you would expect that a question would be asked and then resolved.
But if an entire community has been complaining of high bills for 4 years,
The rates went up, and the revenue went up with the rates. The rates went up at the same time. The revenue went up consistent with the same time the rates went up, as expected. Even these errors, if you look at their monthly billing every month, it looks consistent. It's consistently
File cabinets
high.
full of error rates would be concerning.
Excuse me?
File cabinets full of error reads
Is there-
for every month would be
If
concerning.
there's tons of error reads,
Every month, the file cabinets full of error reads will be concerning. That's my question. I want to know if the revenue was ever checked in an audit that was supporting that enterprise.
analytical procedures
So
were.
just based on whether the process changed and because when the system went in, people's bills consistently stayed at a certain level, it didn't trigger anything. So since what you're saying is since one particular company paid a high rate from the get-go and didn't question that high rate, there was no trigger to go and check it.
There was no trigger that was noted.
Well, what Mr. Baxley told us in the public hearing earlier this evening was that the average consumption for the households is approximately $4,400. Well, you can bet your biddy, nobody's gonna come in here and say, ooh, my water bill's too low, let me pay a little bit more.
Oh, yeah.
But
Absolutely
we
right.
had quite a bit of
4,400
that.
gallons.
Yeah, excuse me. Sorry.
That's absolutely right.
No, we had quite a bit of people.
So,
But also-
I'm sure it was consistent because he was telling us that some of them went back to 1968, some of the old meters. I'm sure it was very consistent.
Yeah. It's a
But that
majority-
didn't mean it was correct. And when you see an unusually low number of gallons used per household, that should have been a red flag.
Yeah, well, again, the large scope of all the users of this system and materiality comes much into play. My individual water bill in the city of Carrollton is piddly to the city of Carrollton, and I doubt it would ever get audited or examined. This is material modification. We provide an opinion that the audit is free of material. If you'd like me to, I could read the entire opinion. It's in the front. That is what we do. And we perform tests of the
True,
system.
but because Temple has had a very public exposure to our water system, I would have thought that would definitely be a place where you would look for indiscrepancies.
Yeah, we went very much more into it this year.
Why not in previous years?
Because the revenue was consistent with prior years. There were 12 months, it was consistent with prior years.
But we
applied
had
analytics.
hearings and
And-
so much controversy going on several years back. It should have been looked at then because of all of that.
It's
That's just my
it's
opinion
also
as a citizen.
the procedures are subject to auditor judgment also. I want to answer everybody's question. I really want to. I don't really know what to do.
I guess my thing is in going forward in a fund, and this is a question I have from an auditing standpoint, take the city of Temple out of it. If you are an entity that has more than one major fund, and each one of these major funds are being audited, should revenue not also be a part of what is a standard audit, just as expenditures are? Because
Yes.
expenditures may not necessarily be the problem, but where the revenue and how that revenue is being taken in could be a problem. So that's
Absolutely.
low or high risk. It may be something in the future that the enterprise fund needs to be audited more closely on both sides.
Well, I don't want you to think that it's not audited. It is. Now, there are different approaches to audit. You can test it. You can do analytical procedures. And even then, we would go in and test like a monthly cash receipts. The money you took in, making sure that's the money that went in and actually went to the bank account,
Right, but see, even on that, and that comes back into my revenue issues. And I'm not talking about your audit, but I mean my revenue, the issues I have with making sure that the revenue that comes in for that water and sewer fund is if we are also scanning and doing the remote deposit with checks up here, at the same time we're taking cash in up here, and we end up with a check from a vendor that gets run through that as well, through that daily scan, even if it's not a water payment or even if it's not a water bill or not a part of the cash, but it becomes a part of that day's receipts taken in on the water and sewer enterprise side, we're going to have controls in place because that complete balances.
there are controls. You can always tighten controls. I insist that y'all should tighten controls as much as you can. I'm a very much proponent of internal controls and tightening them. Now, I don't want you to think that there's just no controls in place. There's a monthly, daily sheet that is generated, Excel spreadsheet that is tied back to the daily totals, which ties back to the water deposits, which are imported automatically by TBS into the system.
Which are also
Hey, I just got a question.
I just want to check something here,
Sure.
if you will, on page 10.
Huh?
The change in net position, because there's always been a question of how much goes into reserve every year. And the change in net position in total, 565,247.
Yes.
That is what we put into reserve last year. Or clarify that.
Okay, yeah, what that number really is, this is a broad approach, okay? So the first two statements are a broad approach. That shows you how much your net position overall went up. Now, this includes depreciation and assets and values and stuff like that. So it's not just really cash.
Okay.
To you, I'm going to tell y'all the most valuable two statements are on page 11 and page 12 and page 14 and page
That's the
15.
net position of governmental.
Well, that is the fund balance. That is general fund. That is floss fund. That is the revenue.
7,426,662.
Okay, hold on. What page you want? No. No. That ties back to the front. Your fund balance is, you see that number 3,345,23? That is a valuable number. That is showing that if you collected all your receivables and paid out all of your liabilities, that's how much money, as of the picture of December 31st, 2013, that you have. Yes. 2,464 general fund. Yes.
But did this also, because this is one of the questions.
And that's only general.
No. You see, it's general SPOS.
That's everything. That's a squash. That's every dime we have.
But there was only.
Well, there's also water on another page. So.
Okay, but then my question with this is, because this is one of my, at that time though, this is as of December 31st, and because there was, I remember you talked about it, this included taking the 500,000 out later than they expected for the CDs. This includes the CDs, this includes any.
Yeah, the CD, the cash.
CDs are indexed.
When you see the general fund, okay, page 11, general fund, cash.
Right.
CDs are that number.
But I'm just saying, this 340, this 3,436,16
Yes.
is our CDs, this is our general fund, is this everything lumped together that belongs to general fund?
No. Look at page 11.
Right.
Look at the 1,813,720 listed as cash.
Oh, wait a minute, show me what I got.
The top left number. Cash, general fund, 1,817,113. That is your general fund balance, your CDs, that is everything.
But on this total governmental funds of this 3,436,16.
That's all your assets. The number you're looking at is your assets. That's your cash. That's if you collected all your property tax payments. If the water fund paid back the money that's owed.
Our slosh, our CDs,
Everything.
We exhausted every bit of everything. That's the best we're gonna come up with is that.
No, that is cash. It's not also including assets, capital assets.
No, I'm not your buildings. I'm talking about if we had all of our slosh and all of our CDs and every dime owed us and every water bill paid.
Yes,
That's our bottom number for everything minus the enterprise fund.
Yeah, that doesn't include the enterprise. Yeah, that doesn't include. Yes, ma'am. That is your total. That is the city's total assets from a governmental fund perspective. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So just going back to page 8 in your management letter, the total ending fund balance of the government funds increased 604. That's where I was asking that question because I thought the net change in position was 5,900.
Okay, where are you at?
What page?
If you're looking at 8.
Yes, the 604,228. Tie that back to page number 12. At the bottom, the net changes in fund balance. That's your total revenues minus your total expenditures, less the transfers for SPOS
And that's the
water.
That's what's paid back.
And our ending fund balance in our account as of December 31st was $2,744,166.
Where are you at?
For some reason, I wrote it.
What page?
I'm on page 8, but I'm not sure if it came out of it.
Okay, hold on.
If you're talking about the general fund, if you look at the top where it says the fund balance, the general fund increased by this too, and it's right there from the major governmental fund.
Yes.
And see, I'm gonna be honest, I'm just gonna go and tell you this. This number right here is what started me asking questions in January, because that number is very similar to what the number was at the end of 12. I mean, you're looking at maybe a $200,000 increase. It was similar to where it ended. And yet when I came up and was asking to see the bank statement, let me see December 31st's bank statement for the general fund. So I'm trying to see this amount. Couldn't see that amount. Never did see. Well, the December
Well,
statement was there, and I
Look,
never
look,
did
look.
quite see that.
That's fund balance,
See,
okay?
it's not like.
Fund balance, okay, fund balance is assets minus liabilities.
Yeah.
You know, that's not cash balance.
Exactly.
If you're talking cash, you look to page 11,
Right.
and that shows that the general fund has $1.8 million at the end of last year.
At the end of last year, and that was where, you know, I saw that number, but that was,
And that's not counting the SPOS,
no, that was
No, ma'am.
just
or the SPOS. Okay.
Yeah, kind of.
And it doesn't count the water.
in the
Right,
bank, but
yes,
that
ma'am.
wasn't after some payroll. I mean, you had things still going out, so the
It
ending.
wasn't after I was told we didn't have any money in the bank.
You talking about the?
I'm just saying, somebody told me that we had no money in the bank, and we had 1.8.
We didn't have money in the bank.
When we discontinued the project, the school building.
Oh, no, we did not have enough money in Squash. Squash was not gonna take in what it would have taken from us, because this is before you paid your bills that were due. This is before you paid the things that are due. It would have taken every dime of our Squash money, and we would have had to did our.
And that's fine.
We would have
I
put our
just was not
reserve down
ever
to about
told we had
$500,000.
Or 1.8.
That's general fund money that's prior to that coming year's bills. That's after you've received your tax payments and stuff that come in to pay your bills the next year. This is like after property
That's
tax
our
and
cash
things are
on
completed.
hand as of December 31st.
And then you take that against what it costs to operate the city the coming up year. So you didn't really have it.
And no, where it's not even taking into account the water funding.
No, I'm talking about you're taking out the account to operate. The account funds that come out of general fund
But that's not
for the
what we
year.
budgeted or receivables. That's not counting what we're going to receive for this year that we budgeted.
Which goes into the next year.
Exactly. So we have 1.8 on
And
hand,
owed out
December
billing.
30th.
Cash in general fund?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So I needed to know.
That's after all outstanding checks are cleared.
Question.
Yes, sir.
On page 4 on the management comment letter.
Yes, sir.
When you get down to the SPOS section.
Yes, sir.
Okay, showing administration building.
Yes, sir.
Library project.
Yes.
Why is not the police department included in that as a project? Because it's going to be included in the new admin complex.
Oh, it is. It is. This again. This is not a finding letter. This is not anything that goes anywhere external here. This is reporting for you. The administration building encompasses all that. It's the project as it exists. Yes, sir.
Okay, but it will be.
Yeah. Yeah. We're just talking about the project
I got over here on page 35.
of the audit report. Yes, sir.
Audit report, where it talks about the admin complex and the 1,452,752.
Yes, sir.
From the LX SWAS. And the last line there says that talks about abandoning the project. We're not abandoning.
No, sir. I'm not. I'm saying you're not. I know
We're still making
you're not.
decisions.
I just said you're still making decisions. Y'all have not completely resolved the matter. From my understanding, you've been advised to that end, and we're just reporting the facts.
And what we're putting on the ballot is just to move
With
the
the library.
library.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, I understand all that. Yes.
Just want to clear that up.
This is why that's here. Typically, what we would have to do, if you look at the picture as of December 31st, you had a contract. Okay, there was a contract in place, and in normal situations, if it had continued or not, I mean, we don't really care about that. But we would have reported that you were in a contract as a disclosure of how much you're expected to be owed. But as a subsequent event, we said we have this contract, but we also went ahead and explained what happened, and that y'all are still making decisions to that end.
I want to clarify something, because
Sure.
I want to make sure Holly's not thinking that there's 1.8
Yeah,
million.
I
that's-
don't
No,
care.
because you're
I
not
do.
what you were told, so I want to make sure you clarify this. Some years, our general fund doesn't increase. Some years, it may increase by 100,000 or 200, depending on what we spend.
Sure.
But we're basically running that same number. We're
I just
not
hope
getting
from now on,
ahead.
when somebody up here tells me something, I want to see it.
Thank you, I asked for bank statements.
And that means all of y'all too. I want to see
Bank
it
statements.
in writing, in something that's documented, inefficient. That's what I'm
See
saying.
it every
So
year.
where I guess I'm going to you as is, it costs about 1 million to run the city, not to pull money
But
out of
that's
the general
not,
fund.
that's not even taking that into account, because when we do our budget, it's what we're receiving. We do our budget based on what we project to receive, not what we already have in the bank.
Okay, do you know how close our budget is to this number?
Well, that's fine. I mean,
Very
we went
close.
one whole year.
Because
we
my whole
already
thing was, how much
budgeted.
do we have left over? That was the question. If we pay everything this year for general fund, what do we have left? And the question that was given back to me was not enough to finish the building by administration.
And I should not even brought up the administration, because I'm not even going there. I just know I was told something incorrect, and from now on, I want it official. And that goes for anybody who gives me
Shouldn't you
information.
have wanted that all those years, is the thing, that y'all don't have it right. Everybody should have wanted that every month, every year.
I went through the entire process of doing a
Don't get
budget
mad
asking
now.
for one question. Can I please see bank statements? Can I please know how much money we really have? Can I please see how much money we have? Can somebody show me a bank statement? Because I have no idea how much
Why would
money
I
we
be
have.
told that we didn't have any? If we
What-
didn't
what I was
it should have
told-
been, I didn't know.
No, what I got told sitting right here was if we pay everything that we paid last year, you're gonna have about 200,000 to 300,000 surplus. We're only carrying over about 200,000 to 300,000 a year after we pay everything. So to pull into that reserve, we wouldn't have paid the bills for that year.
Unless we didn't collect another dime in this city.
No,
That's
you're
all.
collecting a year ahead to pay the next year's bills. That balance in December.
And if we didn't collect another dime, then we could operate off the balance. But we project to collect the money to spend the money.
Okay, but not to pull $1 million out. We would not have had $1 million to put back.
If we didn't collect another dime in the city, we wouldn't have had $1 million.
No, no, because
That's
what we're
the
collecting.
city shutting
No,
down.
no,
so
but
I know
we're,
we're
okay,
gonna
but
collect
no,
money.
but let me clarify. This is where, what we're collecting is to pay the next year's bills. So when you collect that $1.8 million, that 1.8 million, 1.2 million, or however much of that is for the next year's bills. That's the reason why after 4 or 5 years, we're only
And
going to
that's
pay.
fine. I understand that completely. But I'm saying we had it then, and we knew we weren't shutting down, so we would have had it at the end of this year too.
No, you wouldn't have, because what you got, you wouldn't have had it. You wouldn't have took it.
What we spend is what we project to bring in. That is how the budget is done. What we project to spend is what we project to
But
take
if you
in.
project to spend an extra 1.2 million and you don't have that.
And,
in your
okay,
budget,
that's fine. That's the administration project.
But then I don't understand because my question was, we took $500,000 from the general fund and put it in a CD. That was a couple of years, several years of cutting things so that you had this increase of 200,000, which is probably above some operating costs, or an increase of 100. It took years to come up with just 500 to put in a CD. For a long time, the city has operated and taken in just about what they spend. Go back and look. Some months we don't hardly take in. We don't take in as much as we did the year before because we take in, but we spend more.
And if we didn't collect a dime in this city, we would be broke at the end of this year. I get that.
But what if we had some sort of catastrophe?
That
We
was
got
the
to
thing.
have it. It's
No, I
proverbial
agree. I'm not
saying
saying
for a
we
rainy
shouldn't
day, you
have
got to
it.
have
I'm saying I was
something in
giving you
reserve.
correct information, and from now on.
I don't know where, what I got told was that if we pulled the money out to finish that project, we couldn't have paid the bills the next year.
And that's fine.
So to me, you know, we have decisions to make, and that's what an audit to me is gonna show is where do we have weaknesses? Are we losing money on our revenue side? Are we losing money from the time, or are we projecting more revenue than we really have? I'm nervous about these numbers, because believe me, it worried me when an auditor says taking off a $2 admin fee was gonna get us out of compliance with a bond. That's not having access money. If you can't lose a $2 admin fee to this public,
right.
you're not running in
That's
the
right.
red.
That's right.
And that to me is a problem, because I want to be able to not have to go into a bond agreement, which I have looked at thanks to you, and be telling our bondholders, here's how we're gonna make this payment. We're gonna increase our water bills. We're gonna add a $2 admin fee. We're gonna increase our trash. That's what was told to the bondholders in writing, because the money wasn't
Because it
there
had
to
to be
do it.
self-sufficient, and it had to be.
But the money wasn't there to do it, and the money wasn't in the general fund to help it. I mean, we're literally having to sit here and give this account money
We're
that's
out of
forgiven.
compliance.
And you know what? Have we not had to forgive $700,000 worth of salary out of the general fund and forgive it and got it back, we could have built an admin building. The money was forgiven. I want us in a position where we're not borrowing money between funds that we have no intention of paying back. But if we report to the state, we have an enterprise fund and it's self-sufficient, it is. And if your water bills are through the roof, you gotta know why. And you're gonna know for how long. And you're gonna know how long that debt service is gonna run. And you're gonna wanna come to your elected officials and you're gonna wanna say, I don't want another debt service. Or you know what, maybe I wanna see if there's a way to put it on the ballot and pay a penny tax out here for a most tax to pay it off sooner. There are ways to do it, but we were not in a position where if one thing, such as a bond getting called in because the enterprise fund was not self-sufficient, the general fund couldn't cover it, we would have been broke. You've got to be in the red, and to me, paying $30 grand for an audit and following what an audit says because an audit is honest tells me how to get in the red. It's that simple. So if the Carl Vinson Institute says this, and the public pulls that because that's a website for the public, I want that information to match what they're going to come in here and get in City Hall.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't want a $700,000 error on a Carl Vinson Institute while we're looking to build a PD. And somebody comes to me and says, no, you spent $700,000 up there in the hole. And I got to explain that's not the same $700,000 that everybody up here is yelling got put in a hole. That's the position I got put in.
Amen.
Amen.
And I agree. I have been here for 8 months. Practically everything I've asked for, not your fault, has been not true. Not true. All the way from, if you want to know how much the checks were, go down to the bank and pay them $1,000 for it when they're right in here. You know, that's the kind of stuff that gets frustrating for somebody that's up here trying to fix a mess that happened before my time. Lord knows, I don't want to say previous administration. You know, don't want to get another one. but this stuff is just frustrating as crap, and I know how to fix a lot of this stuff, and I don't have the power and I don't have the votes.
But what I do have is an audit that I want to tell me that this is what we got to do. So next year, when I fully expect to get hit, and I want to get hit for every single thing that didn't happen from January to June like it was supposed to, and I'll sit here and take full responsibility for that, okay? I will. We were here, didn't know this needed to be moved. As soon as I found out, I told every right person I was supposed to tell. It happened.
Is that the difference
It happened.
between a forensic audit and this?
No, this audit is literally supposed to do a limited check and balance. What, again, a forensic assessment is that they don't necessarily follow the same accounting fair principles that they're having to go by when they do their test. And what an assessment does, it says, you know what, from an assessment, we don't want to take any more of your money. You got some policy and procedural issues, fix them.
Right.
But if they find an account that says, you know what, we see something here where you may have lost a good bit of money, we want you to give us the money and we'll dig deeper and here's what it's going to cost. And we're at an assessment phase. They could come back and simply say, you've got a lot of policies and procedures that are weak, and I don't want to be holding an audit where I signed off or a council member signed off claiming we didn't have any of them while we spent $7,500 more dollars of your money the same year to say that we did.
Yeah.
It needs to match with what we think might. You understand what I mean? I can't have $7,500 tax dollars come back, even if it is simply problems with controls. Then the audit needs to show us as well any controls that you came across, whether it was that we didn't follow the ordinance, whether we didn't move debt money the way we're supposed to. You understand what I'm saying? Whether we, going into 14, we're going to get findings. We're going to get findings.
Penny, I think one of the things we need to make clear, whether it be this firm or any other auditing firms, they do not work for the council. Even though you write their check, they're working for the citizens of Temple. And even though the council is the one that determines who does it, you write the check, the next person that gets voted in will check the auditors. But the auditors have to understand you're working for the citizens, and therefore we want to know. We don't want you simply taking findings or taking numbers or anything else from the administration and accepting them for truth.
But
That's why you're hired.
They're there to do limited testing, and they
And I
are under the
understand
supervision
that,
of
but they've
management
got-
to assist them. And a part of that later is that management
Right.
assists. And my concerns come in to the fact that while they're here doing an audit, there was no management quote, that had been here for any length of time
Yeah.
to assist. And so when I'm sitting here looking at something that we're going to sign off to, when I know more than I should know, because we didn't have the management to assist, and I'm on the phone with the IRS. So I do know we had a problem because I had to call the IRS. And I know that didn't get resolved by the end of 13. It wasn't resolved. We're going to have to deal with it again in 14. You know, I mean, so the fact that because there was a lack of management, if it's affected what I've gotten, then I cannot assume that that lack of management did not affect what's here. And so when you say you can account for every dime, the money's there, I see issues with, you know, that's the same thing that you would have said last year or the year before, and you can account for the money based on the information that's given to you by who is assisting you here with an audit.
And
You're
nobody's
based on
questioning
you're
it.
based on the information that you are given. You're based on accounts that you can access or you can look at.
And if nobody's up there questioning it,
Yeah.
then it's just, okay, all right, we're signing off on this. That's as good as it gets, right? Is that how it is?
And until this year, we had no one questioning anything.
Yes. You could
None.
you could not question.
And I will
Yeah, yeah,
say
you could
that
not,
I will
because
say
you'd be
this,
escorted
that-
out. Councilman.
I'm sorry, what I will say is that when I was looking at audits, one of the first things I did was ask council member, I asked Holly, did y'all just concur with this every year and not do anything? And she's like, no. So, and I remember I asked, did y'all just concur? They're like, mm-mm. Management, okay, back in the day, like I said, audits were left out, you picked them up. That has not happened in a lot of years. So if I can say that I've not sat in a council meeting while an audit was presented, then I can also assume it wasn't presented in an open forum to a council.
This is the first time I've seen open audit discussion.
And no, I've seen it, but it was back in like 4 and 5, you know, and 3. So I used to get it
So,
on.
Rosemary,
I've
what?
never spoken to Kevin until I met with him early this week, so I can honestly say we have never.
Right. And so with that being said, you know, when it comes, like I said, the 98th issue, I want to know if the payroll issue was given to you as vacation. I also want to know that one of the things that was in here, and it's probably just a formality, but when it talks about if the city is, whatever, with another audit firm,
We're talking
something
about-
about, they have to get in touch with you to.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
accurate- so how does that play into?
Well,
what
yeah,
we're
next
doing?
year that will be an issue. Because you got a forensic audit done, is when the audit's done, making sure that you inform them of all the findings. Basically, all it is as auditors, we're expected to get all the information, and we.
So that's, we tell y'all, or we rely on y'all to give your information to them? It's confusing on who has to share with who.
No, there's not. No, it's a collaborative effort. It's that this is what I'm saying. When the financial audit is done next year, as part of this, it said you need to let us know that you collaborated with someone else and got an opinion on something else, and we need to see that information because that we're giving an opinion, and we need to take that opinion into.
So what we're agreeing when we sign this is that we haven't done that for this year. And when we say that same thing next year, we're saying that, hey, we did give that to you prior to you doing the
Yeah,
audit.
and that's really all this is. The management rep letter is really about you gave us everything. And I'm going to tell you, being up here, I felt that I got everything. If I didn't have enough audit evidence that I felt good about everything, I wouldn't have issued this report.
It's everything that you knew of. It's not
Yes, knowledge
nothing-
of, knowledge of.
So they haven't been charging in like 2012, or did you say 40 times or 400 times one person on his water reading?
It's like 10 times.
So you weren't, quote, given that, so you had no way of knowing that.
Right,
And
well-
that's where we go right back to your numbers are based on what you're
Yeah.
given.
See, like I said before, doing analytical procedures, looking at how much the billing is every month. And you'd anticipate that what the revenue is going to be every month. And there's a check and balance there. It's low risk because there's a person on the other end who, if the water bill's too high, they're going to come in. There's a procedure in place where they'll review their account. The people who are working up here would review their account, go to the city clerk, go to the city manager, get approval to make an adjustment, and those adjustments will be made. Our feelings were that those controls were in place. Now, if a meter reading was reading one extra number, and so it's 10 times,
But if you're getting error reports that say consistently that half the people in the city had high error rates every single month, and you weren't given that information, you can't necessarily contest to the kind of revenue versus the water meter. And that's something we as a city, now that we've got a city manager, is gonna have to look into and come back to us. But there are issues, and that I guess when I'm sitting here looking at something that basically 40-something things that we're saying, hey, we acknowledge this and we don't have any knowledge of this or any knowledge of this, and there are things that, talking into 13, I have clear knowledge of, that I have not had clear answers about. And the water was one of them. And had the council not had concerns about the high water rates, the council would have never appointed Mr. Baxley, the contract person, to come in and find. And I understand that takes a special person with that skill to do it. We couldn't have gotten anyone better to do it.
I agree.
But my question goes back to if we were sampling, give me a year's worth of error rate, give me every error rate, or give me, and you started balancing those, or a printout, give me the printout in January that shows what you bought versus what you sold. It would have triggered something sooner if we had just looked at the revenue end and not just what was going out. Does that make sense?
Well, it does in a sense, but what I want you to understand is a few things. It's auditor judgment. We make judgment calls. It says it in here, procedures are subject to auditor judgment, where we see the risk and where we will go further. Also, it doesn't say that there won't be something that goes detected. These are, the management at that time, it was their responsibility to provide us everything, to give us everything. I also want to address something back to you just real quick. I don't want to be around. I'm a certified public accountant, so I want you to know that I'm always for the public interest. That is what I do. That's why I do what I do.
Well,
and it is. You don't know me personally, so I know that. And if you did, I could guarantee you that I desire nothing more than the city to do everything perfectly.
And in all due fairness, I'm not trying to be rude, as you said, but in the fact that we were in the papers constantly regarding this water issue, in my opinion, I would have thought when I worked for companies, I did books and so forth. If you got a particular issue going on, then that's where you really want to do some concentrating to find out what little issues might be happening. And in our particular case, with the water issue, I would have thought you would have looked much more closely at some of those bills to see. And again, if somebody's only using 600 gallons of water, a month, something's definitely wrong. My hot tub uses 650 gallons,
Yeah.
Those are issues that I think, as I said, whether it be you or anyone else, I don't know whether it's something we should put in our guidelines for the city to make sure that an auditing company looks at things more closely when you see pertinent issues like that.
Well, I'm wanting to address you because I want you to understand what we do, and I don't want you to think that we failed to do something. Okay?
All right, I'm listening.
We analyzed the revenues and we looked at it. We know the water rates are up, so we expect that because water rates increased, revenues would increase. They did. Items went up and down based upon independent factors such as water rates increased. Water rates increased, revenues increased. That indicator pointed the same direction.
But those error reads,
I think if we had been if we'd been given those error reads, maybe.
well, is that something you can ask for? Because
we have access to everything.
Ask for those things.
Yeah, we have access to anything.
All right, let me ask you this question. So if management doesn't issue those things to you, makes them available to you, who can you go to? Who do you go to tell somebody, this management is suspect here, and we are working for the public, so we want to make sure?
That has not ever happened. If it did happen, there would be findings, and I would be reporting it. I've never had an issue of management not giving me something that I asked for. And if I ask for it and I don't get it, we find it.
Well, I'm afraid that has happened in this past
Okay.
administration. You were surely given things that were incorrect.
Okay. Well, I mean, and on occasion we'd have to reconcile something, or a bank balance would be, and we're not talking material stuff. We're talking like there may be an outstanding check that was reissued, little stuff like that, and we help with that. I mean, my goal as an auditor is to help my clients and to help the citizens understand what's going on. That's what I do, and that's why I love what I do. And I don't want anybody to take the impression that I'm just, whatever goes. That is not the kind of person I am, nor the type of job that I wish to do. And yeah, I'm very imperfect. And those SPLOS errors where numbers got added across and we accidentally, the $700,000, the budget number of $580,000 accidentally got at the end, Yeah, I hate that. I hate that more than anything. But the individual numbers, were correct. And, and a number got rolled forward from the prior year incorrectly. I'm a human being, just like you. And I just want y'all to understand that. If nothing else, I have nothing but this city's best interest at heart.
So do I. When you were up here and you had 3 people in here, and you had 2 people and a part-time guy out there in the water up at Worksdale, they run all of the lines, they set all of the meters, we read all of the meters, we've done our in-house water bills up here, we sent them all out. Never in the history have I ever going to be facing the task of writing somebody a $70,000 check for excessive water bills. And then you turn around and you got 2 or 3 other people over there that were not charged enough. Guess what? They're not going to bring us.
Right. I understand. Yeah, I understand.
And you see, this kind of stuff, with me being here, knowing how to fix it, yeah, not your fault. We can't fix it because I don't have the votes and cooperation, it just frustrates the crap out of me.
I understand,
But
sir.
I don't understand how we can make mistake, and then now we have to correct those mistakes.
Yes, sir. And that's why we do what we do. And that's why we're available. And that's why, I think anybody who's ever had a dealing with me, highly this week, you have a question, I provided it. My first encounter with Mr. Ransom when we were discussing some things, I found it. Mr. Walden, if you ever need anything, I would find it and get it to you. I want y'all to be informed. I want the citizens to be informed. And I want people to know what's going on. These reports are my hard work, and I want it to be right. And I want it to help you. And if anything in there you need to know, I will gladly provide it at any time.
We want the citizens to be informed too.
Yes, sir.
Not just the fact that we took a 2% loan and turned it into a 4.5% and paid a company $500,000 to do that wonderful favor for us.
Yes,
That's
sir.
what I want people of this town to understand what has happened to them. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, WGMI Radio, Jerry Siegel, News Director. This firm, I don't know the name of this firm. How much did this firm cost the City of Temple for this audit? Because I'm not clear about that.
I'm not sure it's a regular fee. I'm sure it's probably
28, I think.
26, 28.
28, I think.
I rounded off to 30.
Mr. Mayor, is that a fee that has been charged in previous years?
Yes.
Prior?
Yes. The state requires every municipality to do this every year and to turn it in to proper agencies, which is why I was saying wherever we turn it in, it's got to be accurate. We're paying because they're the ones making us do it. It is a law. You have to do it.
Mr. Mayor, is this a bid out situation for an audit firm?
This company, which is a reputable company, this is a reputable firm, well established and well known amongst its peers. This was, when we got here, we didn't have time or whatever to bid this audit. This is what we had. They so graciously came in here and helped us because we were behind.
And in the past, they had done it, and it has not been bid out that I can see for several years, but it is the intent, my intent anyway, when you're dealing with that kind of money, it should be bid out regardless if the same firm gets it year after year. You should have documentation where you have bid out and opened it up for bid. And in some cities, I've looked into it, some cities may not offer their audit up for bid, but every 3 years, or but there's at least a time frame of when the annual audit goes out for rebid. You might stick with one person for many years.
So, Mr. Mayor, would that price of $20,000, would that also be the type of monies charged to, let's say, the cities, other cities in Carroll County, like Villa Rica or Whitesburg or Mount Zion, or is there a sliding scale for that fee?
I assume I don't have a problem with the fee. I do not have a problem with the credibility of the Garrett, Stevens, and Fazio. I don't have a problem with that. Ms. Walton?
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
the problem I have with the audits, I have gotten an audit ever since 2000, or even 98. I've probably gone back to 98. My problem is now, seeing that 2012 is not the same as what I've got. Now I'm wondering, what audits is right, what audits is not right? I mean, I'm
The ones
concerned.
that are here, I have double checked, and I gave Howard, the ones that I've gone back for, I wrote on. This is what's on the book, this is the same as I have, or this is what is not the same, but I can tell you I went through folders. Now, I did go through, and the 2012 folder is sitting right here, and there is no amendment, not even in our folder. So whatever amendment you have that come up with these other numbers, it's not in our book, and it wasn't in this folder. That means it's not somewhere else. It's a mess up here. But as far as just this particular folder, I don't show the updated, but I do have something that's updated that I was given, because I have one of the same numbers that she has, and I have two other pages that are off. But I do have at least one. So your 12, if it's a copy of something that I got, if you're coming out your own, it may be wrong too. But I did go, I did try to look for.
Well, how
the
many have you
amendment.
changed, Kevin? Over here. How many have you changed?
11 and 12.
11 and 12. So my 11 and 12 is not going to be right.
Ms. Walden, I will get you a copy of the corrected copy
Please.
tomorrow. Could you leave me your email when you leave?
You just give it to him.
Okay, I'll do it.
And just, I need 11 and 12, because I've got all the rest of them.
It was one page. The numbers from the previous year got rolled over wrong, and that went across wrong.
Okay.
But see,
That's all.
now how did you correct this, or did you correct this? Because I looked all through your stuff for this, and I didn't find it, and I was like,
No. If you would like to confirm whether this was correct or not,
oh,
go
no,
to-
not that. I'm talking about, I'm just asking, it's one of the things we talked about. I
Okay.
was looking for the correction in
Okay,
here,
what is it?
I was looking to see where it was going to be moved in here, and I didn't
Let's
see
talk
it,
about
which, whatever reason, don't know why, the rec land acquisition for the rec project was taken off the SPLOSH administration line item in the accounts. Remember, you looked at them and I said, no, that money did not go into the admin building. And so if that 112 that bought where we're locked into that, where we're going into that grant, if that's still showing out of our admin SPLOSH, it's got to be fixed before we sign off.
Are you talking about old? You're talking about that 98
But
spot?
it's in our,
Yes.
no, it's in our 08. This was in our 08.
Well, we can look back at that.
Well, I'm saying in the 08, you pulled it when we were up here and you said, no, that money came off the land acquisition from the 08 SPLOSH. And I said, that bought the rec property. You said, no, it's under admin. So if that 112 or 50 of it, because the county reimbursed us,
Right.
if that's still showing against our administration project, it needs to be corrected. Because that, I don't care how it was recorded up here, it was incorrect. Does that make sense?
That's one of the things we're going to look into.
Because that's going to show up against our 08
And the
SPLOSH based on.
2006?
Yeah, but I'm talking about like right now, we're spending in 08. And right
I know it,
now,
but in 2006, there is no showing on the audits where it shows where that money was took to buy that property over at the Sewellville property.
and that's going to go into updating the 98 when it dropped out.
Okay, so
When it
you can
dropped
fix
off
that,
audit.
Kevin?
What are we talking about fixing?
Okay. In the 2006
I'm
audit.
sorry, y'all. I really am. I'm trying to. I'm trying to help.
In the 2006 audit, you do not show anywhere in the 2006 audit, and Howard's got the 2006 audit up there. You show nowhere where they took $112,500.
It's actually 225 money.
Well, it's 225, but it's out of the 1998 SPLOSH. I'm sorry, it is 225. It's in their federal library there. You don't show that in the 2006 have been taken out. Why?
First of all, I wasn't even with this from 2006, and they did a great job. And I'm not.
We'll have to look.
Yeah, we're just gonna.
Oh, was it still them?
Yeah, we're gonna look at it. I don't even
Same
know.
firm though.
I don't
Now,
know.
would you look?
We can look.
Okay, you need to find it work because
What was
it's
the
not,
figure again?
it's 225,000, it's
Well,
not
this
being
is the-
reported.
It was two different.
I think it was reported to land
No,
acquisition.
98 was being.
I think it was
reported
reported to the
this,
land acquisition
And it
line.
doesn't come off.
Okay,
And
it's
it's
not
not
showing
on
though
that.
in the audit.
We'll
or the
look
not-
at it.
Okay, please, and if you'll just satisfy with me, I'll be happy.
But I guess my issue is right now, we're in a grant, we're doing a rec grant, it's a wonderful opportunity, we're gonna have soccer fields, this is gonna be a really positive thing. So I do not want the $112,000 that the city used to purchase that Rainy Road property that was a trailer park being applied to our admin project under our SPLOST, under land acquisition, which is the way you had it recorded. And I said, no, that is rec. And you said, nope, it's recorded right here. And you gave me a copy. I mean, I have it. And it's clearly recorded under admin land acquisition.
Okay.
And that's definitely not,
What year is that?
would have been in 11, so you need to see, but now it's showing still, we're spending on that 08 now, so that's showing probably, if
I think that's.
50 of that got reimbursed.
The county reimbursed a portion of
a
that.
portion.
Oh, the 57.5. That should be on, okay.
But you had it listed because it was taken out, the full, it was already paid
What's that,
for.
57.5? Okay, I can tell you what that's at. It's in administrative projects.
And it's not, that's a rec project,
Okay.
total rec project. That's listed up here in what you're given. I know what you were given, I have a copy of what you're given. What you're given is wrong.
The intent was for correct.
It was rec from the beginning,
Yeah,
and
they-
it's tied into a grant with rec. So it can't be over here and audit up underneath the admin.
Yeah, it's not you that got it wrong.
No, I'm telling you.
So
what
the
you
112
have.
needs to be reduced by 50, so
No,
we're
no,
talking
the
62?
112 is something completely different. You're talking about, that's the library.
But it
This
was
is,
still, we paid $111,000 for that property, and the county reimbursed us $50,000.
I got it. Rainy, I'll put Rainy Road on
But
this.
but like I said, that is not the land acquisition admin, which is the way it's listed in the audit.
Would you please clarify something for me? Is this the first time we've had an open meeting on an audit?
No, no,
No, it's
no,
not.
they
We
used to have.
Since
I
my
know,
time.
They did.
We used to do it back in the day.
Well, I'm talking about the last 8 years.
I've never seen one.
Okay.
This is the
Look,
first
if
time.
you see
Is
this-
there something in our
I got
charter
Lester's old audits.
that tells us that it should be an open meeting or not? And if it's not in there, do we need to?
That's
Do
and I'll
something.
just be honest with you, that's a council management decision as to whether they have the auditors come in. And I had indicated to the county they always come in, the county, now they're not spending like the number of hours they're doing it. They
Right,
go,
we're making that lost time.
they go through and the board will have read it, and then they come through and just point out the things to them and cross-reference to
Well,
show what they need.
if we somehow make
but
it
it's
so
done.
that it has to be a public meeting, maybe some of this stuff wouldn't have
We're
happened in
making
the
that for
past.
lost time this meeting, because my
Yeah.
point is when literally I did not understand why I got blessed out saying that 700,000 in a hole was online. And I said, no, it's not. I didn't realize till today when I got on Carl Vinson that it does appear that PD, $700,000, is really close to that same amount that everybody, you understand?
We wouldn't be having this
It is
now if we had
exactly
open
what it
meetings
looks like
before.
online.
Okay,
Okay? So
okay. Let's wrap it up. Kevin, you got the gist of what you need to go back and come back to us with.
Can I review? Can I do
Yes,
a review?
you
Because
can.
I want to make sure I'm covering everything.
Yes, you can.
Because, we've discussed a lot. Again, I wanted to say this again. We aim to do a great job and provide you with any service, any question, any help you need. I will let you know about any number that you need to know. Okay?
All right. Review.
Okay, review. The boss says yeah. All right. The 1998 land acquisition and that SPLOST being in the audit.
Well, there's the Swines and Splosh not
Yeah,
reported.
and the 112.5 specifically.
The Splosh period, because there was money left in it. 93 is still reported with no activity, and they've been combined in one account at Pierce. We need to figure out, did you get all the information?
Right, sick time versus vacation time with the issue that we know about.
Get with him, and there's other records that you might compare.
A finding on the ordinance versus resolution of compliance issue that the council has chosen to be a finding.
Okay, I guess what I'm going to put that is this. The council has chosen to realize that we have not gone by our charter, and to put the integrity and the public trust back, I want us to do, and the fact that either you've got to take out, you got to do one or two things. You have to take out of the audit that says, hey, we're legally doing this by an ordinance while we know we legally didn't.
No, what we'll do for the man's representation letter, if that's the case, and we want to wrap this up. I mean, we want to get this thing wrapped, because we don't want to spin our wheels on this, we need to get it gone. And so we will make some adjustments to the management rep letter, because there is a concern about it. We will say, except as noted in the findings, except the finding. You know, we try to address it and say, except as noted in the management comment letter, and try to make it, you know, so that there would be comfort in signing. But if that's not satisfactory, we'll take it to a finding level.
Bottom line, next year, from an auditor standpoint, operating emergency budget is going to be a finding. And the fact that it's going to be the same thing that triggered it, how do you not have it as a finding in 13, but have it as a finding in 14? Are you following me?
Yes.
So we either need to set it up, because we know it's going to be a finding in 14, and then we can show the appropriate measures we've taken in a comment that really says we have concurred because we now do this by an ordinance.
Okay.
Do you follow me?
Follow. And the Rainy Road property and the classification of that. Is there anything else?
I've got here where
Well,
she
that's-
wanted a SPOS expenditures reconciliation.
Oh, yes. I'll get you a copy of that. I have, actually Felicia has it. I emailed it to her the other day.
Yeah.
You gonna take care of that?
The part where we say that, now, and this is hard for me because I'm saying we as in me, but for us to say that the previous council had no knowledge of non-compliance, how do we do that? Because I'm sitting here going like, where I'm at right now, I'm reading a letter.
Signing it.
Well, exactly, because I'm reading a letter that says, hey, you know, non-compliance, so how do you, can you take that out? We have no knowledge if anybody knew they were in compliance or not. Why does that gotta be on
Well,
another
I'm the one saying
administration?
that I have no knowledge, and I'm fine with that.
Okay, so, but does it come back as, how does that come back on the city as a whole? Not a council member, not as a city, the city
I
as a
don't
whole?
understand what the question is, honestly.
If you're signing something based on a previous year, during an election year, when management's turned over, I mean, the city administrator's not here, the clerk's not here, we don't know what's gonna be found or not found. How do you sign off and say,
To the best of our knowledge.
can we put that in?
And that's what those,
It would
that,
be-
well, that language is in there anyway, and it also says,
It's just we have not, we do not.
It'd be to the best of our knowledge.
Do it to the best of our knowledge.
usually on most of them, it is to the best of our knowledge.
Just a quick one.
Yes, ma'am.
I've been told time and time again, ignorance of the law is no excuse, and when you sit in front of a courtroom, you can't plead ignorance.
No,
That's
but
true.
what we've got two different issues going on completely. But to address the question that you had, I think that is to the best of your knowledge, is what you know. And that's what was given to the auditors. I mean, the council is not sitting here with the auditors. No, he's going
Penny, Ms. Ransom, it says right here, we confirm to the best of our knowledge and belief as of July 11, 2014, the following representations made to you during the audit period. All these. So it is to the best of your knowledge and belief, and it's applied to each of these.
Is there any way to put in there that the forensic audit is in process?
That's not something we need.
It'll be
This is a form letter. It's a standard form letter.
And it's not
Okay,
in this
so-
audit year.
All right, but is that going to protect the city?
From
Excuse me?
Is that statement alone will protect the city
what?
from any discrepancies that may come up? I mean, they're signing
Okay,
off
well,
on this.
I don't want y'all to get confused. It's just like the city of Bowden was going through audits regularly. But because there was malfeasance, I mean, they're not sitting here going, yeah, I know there's malfeasance, and you go ahead. That's what it's saying. It's to the best of our knowledge. Nobody's stealing anything. But then you can find later somebody did steal something, but it wasn't like, oh, I know they're stealing, you go right ahead.
My problem with those findings was things that had to do with compliance issues, had to do with the debt service. The questions that I brought out have to do with compliance that are going to be the same things that are going to be carried over next year with us. So if we're sitting here this year knowing that they happened last year and saying to the best of our knowledge they didn't, but all of a sudden at the end of this next year, oh yeah, we know all this happened. I knew it happened the year before.
Because what's going to happen next year is because those people on Tallapoosa Street's going to come up here and say it's all y'all's fault.
Right.
That's why we put language like except as addressed in the management comment letter. The management comment letter, separate from the audit, is the improvements that we want y'all to make without throwing everything in the world into the bucket as a finding.
But the management comment letter didn't deal with the things that I knew we were going to carry over. It didn't deal with the things like that the vacation and the sick time, the debt service account issue, the service charges, those kind of things are going to carry over on
It
those.
did deal with all
Yeah.
those.
But don't get confused with what
Yeah.
they're recommending to you, what they've noted in it, and
I
what
plan on
they'll
doing what's been recommended, so that
Yeah.
next year when we
Exactly.
concur, I'm going to be able to say,
Now,
this is what we
now wait a
did.
minute, now y'all understand this too, when you say to them, I concur that we need a segregation of duties, but we're in a financial situation where we can't, you're acknowledging to them, we agree with you, we need to have probably 10 employees up here, but we don't have the financial resources.
But I'm going to take it one step further and say, I
So-
agree with you, and there can be controls in here that limit who does the money, or you clock in and clock out when you're changing doing the money, and
But
we don't have
they're
those
gonna
controls
always
right now.
find that control when there's, I mean, in the county, even with the number of people they have in their finance department, they get that same thing, because if they're touching the money,
Right.
they should never touch anything else.
Right.
And you can't have enough people for that, you don't have a budget.
No, but if you end up
So
at a
what
point
he's
where
trying to say
you
is-
concur, but we have taken appropriate steps
That
to
you are
limit-
able to,
to
that
limit
you're able to.
the exposure. And, but I'm talking about even when it comes down to the, what page is the management letter on here? Is that done with?
You talk about the findings, it's in the back, the very last,
very last
41, page 41.
Because when you look at the first 40-something,
Oh, you're talking about, are you
so I'm
talking
saying,
about?
when you look at those 40-something
Yeah.
things, and then you flip over to findings, we're down to the same thing, segregation of duties, the financial statement, and now we've really added to this was water billing issues and payroll issues. It's kind of all we've added, just some water billing and payroll. Well, the water billing got brought to your attention because we had somebody in here working when you happened to be doing the audit. The payroll issues came to your attention because we had a council meeting where we had to deal with irregularities, quote, in the clerk's office. These were nothing that wasn't brought out, that the council brought out and said, here.
Risks were identified. We take a risk-based approach.
But when you get over in here with these 40-something, you got IRS late pays, you got employee taxes, you got garbage, you got other issues that are going on that we may end up being actual findings next year before we had control on it by June or July. Or, you understand?
Yeah, but will be.
They will be, so I at least need something that is attached to this.
And I concur, if we didn't have to write that check for $70,000, we'd have hired another person back here. Ms. Fazio, did you have something to say?
I didn't know if you were writing these down, but
Yeah.
you left one thing out to get her the, and I'm
Oh,
sorry,
yes,
I'm
Ms.
calling you
Walton.
her, a 2006 financial statement.
Okay. Well, Mr. Walton has the 2006 financial statement.
No, you were,
No, it's not right.
you remember you were going to give her a 2006 audit report.
Okay. Well, I thought I was going to give you the correct SPOS answers.
And now, I want to know why the $225,000 wasn't reported on the 2006 audit.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it.
That's,
Okay.
yeah. I thought it was 225.
225, what did I say?
Okay, yeah.
Who wants to?
And she also,
225.
and she also wants an 11 and 12 audit that she said was
Five
wrong.
years.
Winding it up.
Yeah, we'll have to find out, we can find those work
Got a
papers.
reason not to.
That's Linda's.
Still all right.
Okay, is there anything, I mean, just from my perspective, I'm trying to get my list.
One more question.
Yes,
You
sure.
had listed in there volunteer fire department. How does that come about? In the audit?
You're talking about as a component unit?
No, it's one of our funds, but
No, it's not a fund. No, I think it's acknowledging the fact that it exists.
it,
Okay, if it no longer exists, then that's something, this is part of the, again,
what is that?
these are your financial statements. If something's changed, we need to know. I mean, nobody addressed that.
I guess when
They
it
don't
don't
have it,
have
I will tell y'all that they do have a volunteer program with the county, and I don't know if that's being dealt with here or not, I don't know.
No, it says that we maintain the firehouse. Or we maintain
Page
the
17, look
firehouse.
at page 17.
That was I did have that question earlier highlighted, right here. Are we maintain, it says the city pays most of the expenses in the organization accounts. We provide the equipment for this organization. However, these amounts are not material to the overall financial statements. And I don't know where we're paying for any of this.
Yeah, I agree.
Don't know. But,
No, we don't want a fire department.
now
We
with,
gotta pay back $70,000.
okay, with the, because I was actually, back in the day, the one that came up here and raised the budget came because the police federal fund was not classified in the audit as a major fund. So I come up here and I raised some of the cane about it and make sure it's a finding that it wasn't listed as a major fund. It was just kind of not. $700,000 that was in this federal drug seized account. And the audit in 9 and 10 did not list that account as a major fund. So after I come back, it was either amended or it come back during the process where the city actually got a finding for not listing that as a major fund. And then from that point on, it's listed as one of our funds, and it gives a balance. Has anything with that been audited since you listed it as a major fund?
Okay, I can explain this real quick. First of all, it was listed separately. I think it was listed as a major fund. I know the history of this. The issue with the Department of Audits was about having a budget for that fund, that fund be budgeted separately. And that was the finding issue.
Because I actually have looked at it because I had.
But that fund has always been listed separately and is in every audit. So it's not like a situation where something wasn't recorded or reported. It always has been.
The city established a new special revenue fund in the year to account for money seized related to control for offenses. However, the fiscal year budget was not established and not approved for these funds.
Yes.
So my question is anything with that fund since this year been included in a part of your audit or your test audits?
Oh, absolutely. We audit that every year, and it's in here.
It kind of basically just stays the same. It just kind of
Yeah,
shows where
there's
it's
very
at.
little. There's very little activity that goes through it. Really, it's any drug
There's a
seizure.
lot of activity.
It's the drug seizures if you have it.
$700,000.
Oh yeah, back then, yes, a lot went through it back then, and a lot was spent.
Okay.
Yes.
But has any of the sale of any of that stuff been recouped in your audit?
Yes. When it's sold, it's recorded as a proceeds from assets, and it's in a few audits. So yeah, you can look back at that. It's listed as a police asset fund. It's in there. Got any questions? Let me know. It should be in every
Are you
audit.
saying you know of some sales that are not
No.
in here?
I'm gonna go back and check, so if you can give me the printouts on the federal, where it's been recorded, it's coming back in, that would be helpful.
Mr. Wallen. Closing comments, sir.
Well, I think it's been a good, productive meeting, educational. I think we should do it again next year.
We will do it again next year, I can promise you, it is if I'm here. It's all coming. This rest. It's all coming.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for everybody that came and sat. And this Department of Community Affairs, we're gonna take care of this, or you're gonna show us how to take care of
The
this?
report is done. Once we get this stuff finalized to where someone will sign the management representation letter and accept responsibility for this audit, which is what we need, someone to accept responsibility for the audit. All this can be done.
Back to sleep.
I did it for 25 years at the authority.
You can't quit. We're not accepting resignation. She's only a housewife.
I signed on
That's it,
every
there's a clean
year.
office approval.
My board done
Motion
so.
to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Let's vote, y'all vote.
They wrote me up every year.
You have to get the entire